Inaka Yuji, a 27-year-old salaryman, walked through a busy street, lamenting his exhaustion and desire to quit work and move back to the countryside, a man's warning shout of danger barely registering. The danger became immediately clear as a large truck barreled toward him, its lights blinding as the man who warned him yelled to get out of the way. Yuji stood still, accepting his fate and calmly reflecting on how hard he had been working, a tired driver visible in the truck's cab. His consciousness floated above the city as he observed the scene from a distance, recognizing that the driver and he were in a similar state of fatigue. As he drifted, he remembered his childhood, thinking about how fun and relaxing it was living in the countryside before making a final resolve. He was abruptly pulled out of his thoughts by a young girl shouting his new name, Alfred, waking him. He saw the girl looking down at him and recognized her as his big sister Eleonora, lying down and dazed. Eleonora, 9 years old, stood over Alfred Slowlet, who was now 3 years old, asking if his eye hurt, and he sleepily replied that he was just waking up, assuring her he was only taking a break. Eleonora asked if their mother ever took him outside, then remembered she was supposed to be somewhere else. She asked the small boy what was wrong as they stood looking out over a peaceful village landscape. Alfred then recalled that he was known as Inaka Yuji, a Japanese salaryman, but he had died to a truck on the street, noting that this happened in his past. Eleonora took Alfred's hand, urging him to come home because their mother was worried, to which Alfred gave a slight apology. Eleonora expressed concern that a 3-year-old was so tired, noting his eyes looked weary, and he internally reasoned that he was a very tired salaryman in his previous life. Alfred thought about how he was able to use magic in this new life and that he was currently engaging in magic training. Eleonora advised Alfred, or Al, to go outside and exercise his body once in a while, but he explained that if he stopped using his magic he felt weak and would be better off if he fell asleep. Eleonora asked if their mother had instructed him to do so, and Alfred recalled a time she had forced him to go to a river. Eleonora, however, insisted that her suggestion came from her own kind heart. Alfred groaned in his bed, realizing that his sister Eleonora was the source of his current troubles, disturbing his naps and interfering with his magic training. He concluded he was starting to see his big sister as a demon as they walked hand in hand, and he realized there was magic in this world. The space before his reincarnation, where God, a bearded older man, explained that the location was not on Earth and that the usual procedures after death did not apply there. God explained to Yuji that his soul had gone to the wrong world for some reason, a case God had never seen before, and now that his soul was here, it could not return to Earth. God then informed a surprised Yuji that he would instead be reincarnated into this new world. Yuji was thankful for the opportunity but worried about the new world being filled with monsters and being dangerous, and he was startled that God could read his thoughts. God, realizing he forgot to hide his ability to read minds, simply pointed out that he was God. God explained that the new world had humans just like Earth, but it revolved around the use of magic, and though there were creatures called demons that attack people, science was not yet developed. Yuji, with the appearance of his previous salaryman self, wished to live a relaxing life if he could truly reincarnate, questioning if he could live peacefully in a fantasy-like, magical world. God, seeing Yuji as the first person from a foreign world, decided to give him a precious sample, something incredible to go along with his reincarnation. Yuji was forced to accept that his reincarnation was unavoidable and that he did not have a choice until he died again. God noted Yuji's fast change in mood, calling him quite carefree for declaring he wanted to live happily in the new world, regardless of the circumstances. Yuji asked about the process to reincarnate, and God offered to reincarnate him as a crown prince or the eldest son of a noble. Yuji realized that being born into a high position would allow him to live without stressing about food and shelter, but he thought that path might be too busy. God, seeing that Yuji had no real desires or ambitions, decided to give him magic aptitude and ancient magic as an extra service, to which Yuji expressed thanks beforehand. Yuji realized he would be able to use magic, filled with joy, and God, who was a literal deity, told him to rejoice. Yuji speculated about his new magic, dreaming of summoning monsters to do his work for him, which would feel good and be fun, but he also worried about things the monsters could not help him with. The man stated that his sole goal was to live a fun and relaxed life in the countryside, and God noted his goal did not seem that different from his previous life. Yuji expressed hope that there was a perfect place like that, and God mused for a moment, then suggested an option. God suggested a village named Koliat with plentiful nature and offered to reincarnate Yuji there as the second son of the Lord. Yuji, considering the options like healing and defense, found it hard to choose something so amazing, questioning what ability he should choose, all while floating in the void. He quickly dismissed the idea of combat or utility magic, reiterating that he was only going to live in a relaxed way, deciding that he needed an ability to use magic itself even better. He thought about the disadvantages of living in the countryside as the son of the Lord and wanted an ability to prevent those disadvantages, since the cultural level of Koliat was similar to medieval Europe on Earth. Yuji considered natural disasters and the need for a damage ability for animals like boars and bears, but decided if there was a government, they could deal with it, realizing there were only a few dangers surrounding Koliat village, and he was surprised that God was still reading his mind. Yuji apologized to God for the delay, asking if he had made a decision, as he realized that if the cultural level was low, the level of transportation would be low, meaning there were likely no bikes or cars, prompting him to think about movement-type magic. He decided to ask for spatial magic for long-distance movement, which God confirmed was one of the ancient magics that would allow him to teleport to most places in an instant. Yuji determined that spatial magic would be the perfect magic to use in the countryside, as God suddenly produced a small table and a pickaxe. He readily accepted the offer of spatial magic, telling God, "Yes please," and confirming he was ready to go to his new world. Yuji thanked God for everything before he left for the new world. God saw that Yuji seemed very serious and bid him farewell. A swirl of magic surrounded Yuji as he was sent to his new world. God confirmed that with a little effort, Yuji would be able to use the spatial magic and told him to do his best. Yuji was immediately confused by God's mention of effort and wondered how he was supposed to use magic. He descended in the air, contemplating what he should do. Yuji, the former Inaka Yuji, concluded that his next life in the countryside, reincarnated into a different world, had now begun, even if he did not yet know how to use his power. The new 3-year-old Alfred, reincarnated into a different world, was shown with his big sister Eleonora, smiling in the countryside. The consciousness of Alfred Slowlet, the newly reincarnated salaryman, struggled to wake in the bright morning, wondering if he had to work. He realized that he was currently only a 1-week-old baby, a reality he could not quite grasp. The narrative flashed to an image of his 1-week-old self, a newborn with the mind of a 27-year-old, seemingly confused in his new tiny body. The focus then shifted to the 3-year-old Alfred Slowlet, the second son of the lord of Koliat village in the Mistrit kingdom. Alfred noted with relief that, at 3 years old, he could now move by himself, though he sometimes still fell. He recalled his original identity as Inaka Yuji, the 27-year-old Japanese salaryman. Yuji remembered his death on Earth from a traffic accident with a truck. He recalled his subsequent reincarnation by God into another world where magic exists. A loving image of his new family, the Slowlet family, appeared, including his father, mother, big sister, and big brother. Alfred realized that thanks to his family talking to him every day, his baby body was gradually starting to understand the language of this world, while retaining the consciousness of Inaka Yuji. He was able to start crawling with slight ease because he still had the memory of movement from his previous life, much to the surprise of his mother who cheered, "Al is already crawling." Alfred, standing now, noted how inconvenient it was when he couldn't walk because he couldn't do anything, as his family looked on with concern over him clinging to a book. His family found him to be a weird child for not letting go of a magic book, but Alfred knew he could only perform magic training in the bed when he could not yet move. Alfred stood lost in thought, the wind blowing gently around him. His mother smiled, asking if the wind felt good, to which Alfred could only respond with a sound. The boy realized that the air in this world is different from Japan. Alfred greeted his brother in the library, declaring that he would read that book slowly today, as the shelves towered around them. His 6-year-old big brother Silvio Slowlet was reading a book and asked if Alfred had come to read that one, as Alfred responded that though there were many words he couldn't read, the book was still interesting. Alfred felt Silvio's calmness was strange for a 6-year-old, while Silvio offered to have Alfred ask him about anything he didn't understand since Alfred was so good at reading words. Alfred contrasted his quiet brother Silvio with his big sister Eleonora, whom he saw as the complete opposite, as Eleonora energetically pulled his brother away, claiming they were leaving. Alfred found his brother Silvio pleasant to be around because he was so quiet. Stepping outside, Alfred noted the nice weather and mused about whether he should go to his secret base today. The outside world was a pleasant, rural village with trees and mountains in the background. Alfred prepared to use spatial magic, concentrating and imagining the place he wanted to teleport to. He yelled the command to teleport as a small spark of magic shot from his hand. The spark carried a small stone and dropped it onto a wooden table in the clearing. Alfred continued his training, repeatedly using the teleport spell on a stick and another small rock. He clenched his fists in satisfaction, concluding the power was amazing and that God was indeed amazing for granting it. Wiping sweat from his eyes, Alfred sighed, noting that he could now control the spell freely. The scene flashed back to a dream where God had appeared and asked Alfred what he meant by magic abilities. Alfred was shocked to see God and realized God was speaking to him inside his dream, as God apologized for his rudeness and said he was glad Alfred was successfully reincarnated. God explained that ancient magic requires a lot of magic power to activate, so even though he had been given magic, Alfred could not use it as he wanted right now. God then promised to give him special tips for learning spatial magic while he lived at Koliat village. Alfred complained that God should have told him before reincarnating him, but quickly calmed down as God stated he had come to teach him methods for increasing magic power. God told Alfred it was time to sleep and explained that to increase magic power, he needed to continuously use his magic power and replenish it back. Alfred realized his training while he was still a baby was worth it and thanked God, as the dream showed Alfred lying in a crib. Alfred mused that with his growing power, he would not have to carry stuff or clean up, and he could even get away from big sister Eleonora. He chuckled at the thought, dismissing it as the first thing that came into his mind, and decided that his next goal was to research the rules of spatial magic. Alfred struggled, groaning as he pushed a heavy rock. He then shouted teleport as he lifted the rock with his hands. The rock successfully teleported and rested on a table, proving his guess that the heavier the object, the more magic consumed. Alfred then decided the next subject for his experiment would be living beings, wondering if he could find any nearby. A large rhinoceros beetle was the next to be tested. Alfred held a small rhinoceros beetle, deciding it would be his trial subject for a magic experiment, curious if it was similar to Earth's beetles. He shouted teleport, sending the beetle flying onto the table. Alfred celebrated the success of teleporting the rhino beetle. His victory was short-lived as a much larger beetle appeared, causing Alfred to react in shock. The large Spuncerus beetle pursued Alfred, who apologized profusely, wondering if the large beetle was the smaller beetle's lover. After being chased by the wild spoon beetle for about 30 minutes, Alfred was able to use the spatial magic on himself, deeming it awesome. Alfred, having successfully teleported himself away, reappeared and landed a large rock on the training table, signifying another success. He mused that he was starting to see now how the magic worked. Alfred stood in the clearing, holding a leaf, realizing with the phrase, "I see now," how to proceed with the next step of his training. He then wondered why a certain spot was so hot. A maiden's heart is difficult to understand, as the narrative ponders how something too good to be true is scary, and notes that even the always troubled Eleonora can also have a maiden's heart. The panel shows an ornate, curtained window. Eleonora looks down at Alfred, who is in bed, and shouts, He's awake." Alfred wakes up, confused and asking himself, "Who am I? Where am I?" before remembering his past life as Inaka Yuji and his current name, Alfred. He recalls that if he's not mistaken, today he was doing some sword training with Dad when he was shaken awake by Eleonora, who asks if he is alright and if anything hurts, while another voice, presumably Roomba's, tells Eleonora she shouldn't be shaking him like that. Eleonora quickly says she was worried because Alfred had a dead fish look in his eyes, but the other voice points out he was born with those eyes, and Eleonora concedes that he's right. Alfred sees the worried faces of Eleonora and Roomba, wondering what happened to their concern just moments ago. Roomba places his hand on Alfred's head, relieved that Al finally woke up, asking Eleonora if she is trying to pick a fight with him. Eleonora looks incredibly angry, wondering why she couldn't land a single hit when it really mattered, while Roomba proudly announces that since he won their little match, he'll have the privilege of taking the little guy along with him for the whole day tomorrow. Roomba, holding his sword, asks Eleonora, who also has her sword drawn, if she is giving up, but she immediately shouts, "Of course not. I can still go on." Roomba looks intrigued, saying, "Oh," as Eleonora firmly tells him she is not going to admit defeat and that he hurt her. Roomba gives Eleonora a wide grin and says he would have expected nothing less from the Dragon Slayer's daughter and that this little missy has some serious fighting spirit in her. Eleonora is exhausted and begs her dad to give her a moment to rest for a bit, telling him to at least count to 30 as he decides to count to 10, while Roomba thinks the boy over there is night and day compared to her. Eleonora, now recovered, asks Roomba if he is sure it's okay to take his eyes off his opponent, asking what he thinks would have happened if she attacked while he was open like that. Roomba is impressed and asks, "What was that?" But then casually remarks that he was nice enough to give her enough time to catch her breath too, to which Eleonora shouts that he is how mean. Eleonora tells Roomba not to go easy on her just because he thinks she's a child, and Roomba seriously replies he would do no such thing, especially since she shows so much promise. Roomba instructs Eleonora to use her agility to her advantage and try to land a hit on him, asking if she thinks she can land a hit on him in her sad, weary state. Roomba explains that he has lived more than double her lifetime, meaning his trained body has accumulated much more experience and stamina than hers, and that her reckless and irrational strikes would never graze a seasoned warrior like him. Eleonora is visibly frustrated, saying Roomba can act pretty cool sometimes, but it kind of pisses her off. Eleonora asks Roomba to please have another match with her, but Roomba declines, saying, "Thank you, I think I'm fine now," and Eleonora accepts with a sigh. Roomba looks at the tired Eleonora, thinking she may say she's fine, but he's sure she is slowly reaching her stamina's breaking point, and suggests that in that case they should place a bet. Roomba proposes that they have themselves a little bet, asking if she wants to bet, and Eleonora asks what the bet is. Eleonora accepts the bet, saying, "You're on." When Roomba announces that the winner will have the privilege of spending the whole day tomorrow playing with the kiddo. A large sound effect marks the moment the bet is finalized. Roomba congratulates Eleonora, saying she really did her best out there, and hands her a drink, while she pouts that she was so close and it's how frustrating. Roomba smiles and says, "There you have it." Roomba walks toward the door and says, "See ya tomorrow," as Eleonora shouts that next time, she'll be sure to win. Alfred, lying in bed, realizes the match and bet were made without even telling him and wonders what about his input. Eleonora brings a tray of food and water to Alfred, saying it's ready for him, and that she'll just leave it here, and he thanks her. Eleonora, concerned he doesn't have enough energy, suggests she can spoon-feed him herself, but Alfred declines, saying he can feed himself. Alfred wonders if Eleonora clicked her tongue just now, noting that her short answer reeks of good-for-nothing intentions, while Eleonora denies it, saying, "No, it's nothing." Alfred knows that whenever a girl is visibly mad and utters the words, "it's nothing," it means she is definitely concealing her true intentions and he is in serious trouble. Eleonora mentally says that obviously, it's not nothing, but she doesn't want to talk about it, even though she says, "It's nothing." Eleonora, standing by the door, tells Alfred he should cut down on the idle chit-chat and needs to rest, saying she'll be going now, and Alfred thanks her for everything and notes that she was the one doing most of the talking. Eleonora smiles and waves goodbye as Alfred lies in bed. Eleonora closes the door and sighs as Alfred listens, and he hears her wishing that she really wanted to have Al go, so she can feed him too, while Alfred sighs with relief that he finally has some peace and quiet. Alfred looks out the window and sighs, saying, "But?" He smiles, thinking that he's glad they were worried about him. He clenches his fist in relief and joy, concluding that on this beautiful day, the ability to stay in and laze around is the best, and moreover. Bartolo's hidden business, contrasting with the theme of living a slow life as a reincarnated person. Big sister Eleonora was engaged in intense sword practice, yelling "SCI," while swinging her blade, with her brother, Silvio, watching her in alarm. Alfred watched the group, noting how enthusiastic big sister Eleonora was, and observed big brother Silvio nearby. Alfred mused that Silvio did not seem very fond of swordmanship even though it was an important technique to defend ourselves with. Alfred felt so envious of Silvio, revealing that his brother likes to study and read books. Their mother approached Alfred, asking him what he was doing, and Alfred wondered if he would be able to make a decent swing once he turned 6 years old too. Alfred quickly denied wanting to play with the swords, assuring his mother he was only watching it, and declaring that being relaxed and peaceful is better. Mother laughed, affectionately noting that Alfred really likes to relax, and then commented that he seemed more interested in magic than swords, which surprised Alfred, who wondered how old his mother thought he was, since he only sometimes read books and practiced magic. His mother happily offered to teach him magic since she used to use magic in the past, a fact Alfred was now realizing. Alfred reflected that his mother was a merchant who apparently could use magic and his father was a former adventurer, and they had met Bartolo around that time too, who was actually a really amazing magician. Eleonora happily finished her training, calling out, "A.L." to play, and mother commented that Eleonora looks fine despite her exertion. Alfred told his sister to wash your body at home, as she looked so sweat and he insisted she wash herself before you go, especially because you're a girl, but Eleonora just yelled, "No," saying she was going to the river so it's okay. The two siblings arrived at the river, where Alfred was asked, "What are you going to do at the river?" Alfred replied that he didn't know what we should do and noted that he can't make it skip well with just a 3-year-old's shoulder. He decided to enhance my arm strength with magic power and threw a stone hard, exclaiming, "Hup." Eleonora stared in shock, asking, "W?" as Alfred wondered if the stone was 7 or 8 bounces. Eleonora was extremely excited, calling the stone skipping awesome and amazing, demanding Alfred tell me how he did it. Alfred instructed her how to hold it like this and throw it like this, which Eleonora acknowledged with an okay. Eleonora tried her best to skip a stone but failed, asking, "Why didn't I bounce?" Yet Alfred observed that she still looks like she's having fun. Alfred then advised her to choose a thinner and flatter rock and showed her an example, which Eleonora understood. Eleonora followed his advice and successfully threw a flat rock. Eleonora happily cried, "I did it," as Alfred realized that she could do it already and that she was better than me. Alfred begrudgingly acknowledged that big sister Eleonora had good instincts as expected. He repeated his thought that big sister Eleonora has good instincts as expected, especially for someone who had just commented that there isn't even a single fish in the river. Alfred looked around, thinking that the Koliat village sure is beautiful and it's so quiet. His peaceful moment was broken when Eleonora suddenly appeared, asking him with a huge grin, "What are you doing?" Alfred wanted to run before she said anything first and was disappointed that Eleonora was already done with stone skipping and was now suggesting, "Let's go swimming," or, "Want to try fishing?" Alfred reflected that he was able to teleport to a far distance during his spatial teleport magic practice, but with big sister Eleonora's pursuing abilities, he was still found shortly after. Alfred hid in a small cave, covering his face, while Eleonora's voice was heard saying she felt like "You are over here," prompting Alfred to wonder what that was all about. Alfred was irritated that Eleonora found fishing boring because he did not understand the beauty of fishing, reminding himself that he was also a child right now. Alfred brightened up when Eleonora proposed, "Then, how about we eat the fish that we catch?" Eleonora quickly declared, "I'll go get the fishing tools," and Alfred, seeing her motivated, sighed, "Good grief," realizing that mother was right and Eleonora looks fine indeed. Alfred decided to bypass the wait by saying, "Oh, I'll just teleport to the food storage to get the salt, a necessary ingredient that finally arrived." Alfred teleported to the storage room and was surprised by Bartolo, who asked, "What are you doing, Palto?" Bartolo, holding a small jar, was startled by Alfred and explained that the sugar arrived from an old friend, and Alfred exclaimed, "That's my line," asking Bartolo what is that. Bartolo explained that the sugar was a rare product and that Nord has no use for it, so he would use this to test my cooking, asking Alfred to keep this a secret. Alfred's parents, Father Nord and Mother Elna, suddenly arrived, startling Bartolo, who instinctively tried to cover Alfred's mouth to keep him quiet. Sarah, a maid, then entered, asking what are you two doing, causing Bartolo to panic and think I should avoid letting her know at all costs. Sarah explained that she came to check the ingredients today because she was the most flexible maid among the others, and asked if Mr. Bartolo purchased additional ingredients like wheat, to which Alfred could only observe her sharp questioning. Alfred, regaining his composure, told Sarah he came looking for a fishing rod, and Sarah, revealing that Eleonora-sama came looking for me as well, offered to direct him to the storage room where the fishing rods were kept, as Alfred thought he can't help it. Alfred was impressed that Sarah was so good and he can't even deceive her. Sarah told him I'll come back later as she left, prompting Alfred to mentally teleport the sugar jar with teleport. Alfred urged Bartolo hurry and hide it quickly because now is the time, to which Bartolo stammered, "All right," while Alfred, holding the sugar, insisted that Bartolo share a little with me. The narrative jumped, showing Alfred and Eleonora holding their fishing rods, concluding that big sister Eleonora won of course in the fishing match after Alfred got the salt and hurried back. The narrative wrapped up with a title card for Bartolo's tragedy over the sugar as a story for a different time. The chapter concluded with Alfred stating that it was time to find some food, narrator setting the scene for Mother Elna's magic lesson, urging Alfred to listen well and stop yawning. Alfred was relaxing outside, noting that it was another nice weather today and that the wind feels good. He stretched out, finding the air still so refreshing, comparing it to the abnormal heat in Japan. Bartolo suddenly appeared, yelling, "W!" at Alfred, asking what are you laughing at because it was so creepy, while Alfred celebrated that the countryside is the best. A text box provided a previous chapter review about Bartolo who secretly obtained sugar being discovered by Alfred at the storage room, leading Alfred to realize that Bartolo was indeed alive, which prompted Bartolo to ask what Alfred meant by that. The plot twist was that the two of them were actually secretly holding a hot cake party with a lot of sugar, which was discovered by the intelligent maid Sarah, who exclaimed that this was not fair and wondered what that sweet smell around the mansion was, and also by two other maids, Asari and Beretta, who love sweets. As a consequence, Alfred was scolded and felt that many females were blaming him for this case. Back in the present, Bartolo nervously mentioned that there is still some sugar remaining, causing Alfred to jump up and call him an idiot, trying to silence him. The commotion caught the attention of Alfred's mother, who appeared, exclaiming the key word, sugar. The sudden mention of the word also reached the ears of another maid, Mina, who worked for the Slowlet family, and Bartolo was completely taken aback, thinking she was the young madam. Bartolo covered Alfred's mouth again, panicking that he shouldn't use that word so carelessly, while Mina looked around, saying, "That's strange," because she didn't see anyone here who said the word. Alfred thought that was the first time seeing Mina being so attentive, and asked Bartolo if the hidden sugar was safe, to which Bartolo happily confirmed he still have it, only a little though. Alfred revealed that Bartolo had promised that a cream sauce for spaghetti was almost complete, which Alfred was looking forward to because he was getting tired of only eating tomato spaghetti recently. Bartolo, now enthusiastic, told Alfred to do your best and that he would be waiting for you, and Alfred thought to himself that it was the first time I've seen Bartolo this excited. Alfred's mother then appeared, calling his name, and Alfred wondered what should I do now. His mother smiled and announced I'll show you magic today, causing Alfred to try to play dumb by saying he didn't know what anything she was talking about. Alfred's mother offered to teach him magic, noting that if it was magic she could certainly help, and Alfred internally thought it was what great timing since he didn't do any magic training today. Alfred was taken to the top of the stone wall that surrounded the mansion. His mother began the lesson by asking what kind of magic he wanted to use, saying she already knew he was using water and earth magic from Eleonora, and revealed that if he includes space magic, she can use about 8 attributes. Alfred eagerly told her, okay, and asked if she could show me something using your magic, after which she demonstrated water magic by raising a stream of water. Alfred then performed his own demonstration of earth magic, creating a simple chair with a dramatic effect, exclaiming, "I did it." His mother was shocked that he created the chair without a magic chant, and Alfred explained that he had been training ever since I couldn't speak by chanting it in your mind, a fact which left his mother bewildered. His mother, still stunned, said, "I understand," and asked if he can do anything else. Alfred, with an expression of intense concentration, began to cast a spell. He produced 2 wine glasses filled with water using his magic. His mother watched him with wide open eyes. Alfred presented one of the cups to his mother, who stammered, "Thank you," and confirmed that he could use 4 attributes and ice magic too, as Alfred nonchalantly offered it, saying it was the magic I usually use. His mother admitted that Alfred is really amazing and better at magic than I thought to be able to use this many types of attributes and suggested that he can teach mother instead, concluding that she need to create a training menu, so let's stop here today. Alfred mused that magic that makes life easier is enough, and when his mother asked if he knew any offensive magic, he replied that he did not, which his mother noted was exactly what Al would say. Alfred's father then showed up, asking if Alfred wanted to go to a magic school, which Alfred immediately politely declined because he still want to enjoy my child life. Concluded with a small sound effect, marking the end of the magic lesson, narrator announcing that the 4-year-old Alfred can finally explore outside the family grounds. Alfred's father asked him if he had everything for the trip, and Alfred replied, "Why, don't worry." Alfred's father reminded him of the objective for today's little outing, which Alfred confirmed was to go patrol around the village, and the family bid them a safe trip as they were off. Alfred recalled that his father was following the custom that the feudal lord's son receives a tour around the village by the villagers when he just turned 4. Alfred told his father that he had played around in the meadows before but that this was his first time going to the village. Alfred internally pulled up an easy map of Coliate village, noting that to teleport to a certain location, I have to have a clear picture in my head of the whereabouts, concluding that after visiting the village today, I can then start teleporting to it whenever I want to. He observed the magnificent view of the fields and mountains, thinking that he was seeing them at any rate. Alfred was ecstatic about the magnificent countryside road, thinking that there was so much lush greenery and it was like a soft carpet. He breathed in the air, loving the countryside so much because of the fragrant aroma from the surrounding plants and the earthy smell from the soil. His thoughts turned to rice, recalling a book that mentioned the eastern continent seemed to have something that resembles rice. He remembered reading Adventures of Dumfries, which mentioned a fabled grain but added, "We are unable to describe what it looks like in further detail," making Alfred yell that it was unforgivable that the author would abandon your rice adventures. Alfred's father, pointing ahead, told him that we can almost see the village from here. The village came into view, composed of scattered houses on a rolling hillside. Alfred, seeing the houses, was excited, exclaiming, "Oh," and realizing, "So this is Culinary village." He asked his dad what type of crops do they grow here, and his father explained they grew wheat, barley and rye, as well as legumes and various other vegetables, and furthermore, they also raise animals like chickens and sheep. They were greeted cheerfully by a villager, who welcomed the feudal lord himself, and Alfred also returned the good day greeting, observing the villager's lively nature. The villager praised the spaghetti recipe Alfred had taught us the other day, saying everybody just can't get enough of it. When the villager asked how old Alfred was, he proudly replied, "I'm 4, prompting his father to proudly announce that my son here was the one who devised how to make spaghetti, while the villagers commented on how level-headed and composed Alfred-sama was. Alfred's father laughed and admitted that Alfred was a little and a very weird kid, isn't he? But quickly added that he found that funny too, and the villagers bid them farewell, welcoming them back any time. As they were leaving, one villager praised Alfred's father for having a wife with a nice butt, and told Alfred-sama to be sure to grow up to be big and strong, just like his father. Alfred's father was shocked, wondering how did he know, while another villager commented that the comment looks like a bullseye and told him there's no use moping about it now. The first villager continued to wonder, shocked that Alfred-sama could give such a calm and composed reply, and questioned if he was really 4 years old. Alfred and his father continued their tour, observing the various people selling goods and produce. Alfred observed the various stalls, noticing that the market structure revolves around bartering. He paused to look at some strangely colored fungi, thinking about what dangerously colored mushrooms they were. He continued to analyze the economy, noting that since they sell items at the town square utilizing a bartering system, there is some economical structure, but added that if people do not provide any leeway in a bartering system, there would be issues. He realized that the lifestyle for certain villagers who have no choice but to barter will become unfeasible. However, Alfred also noted that the villagers' livelihood is pretty rich and abundant, and that this exchange system only works the way that it does because of this abundance. Alfred, in a rare moment of enthusiasm, told his father that this was incredible, to which his father smiled and said it's nothing, really, explaining that the Kolayate is naturally a prosperous village and the tax we have to pay to the royal capital is really low since it's just a small village in the countryside. They encountered the village chief, who wished Nord-sama and his son a good day, correctly identifying Alfred as Alfred-sama. The village chief was pleased that Alfred-sama has grown up to be so healthy and commented that everyone has been so lively, which Alfred's father said was good to hear. The village chief explained that due to last year's stable weather and the abundant harvest, they were able to get through the winter without anyone starving to death, leading Alfred's father to observe that the village it has been more prosperous this year compared to last year, which the village chief confirmed. Alfred thought about how the winters in this world sound problematic, while the village chief told Nord-sama that he had a few things I would like to discuss with you and invited him to his home for a chat. Nord asked Alfred, "What about you, Al?" And Alfred replied that he still want to explore a bit more around the village if you don't mind, which Nord agreed to, but warned him, "But don't head too far, okay?" The village chief said, "Now then." And he and Alfred's father walked away. Alfred was now on his own and showed off his pile of goods, which included cooking ingredients, seasonings, lumber, and other materials, exclaiming, "There goes my pocket money," since his shopping was done. He then used his storage magic to put all the materials away, thinking, this should be good. Alfred explained that by applying his space magic, Al is able to freely store and remove items from his very own personal subspace, noting that the concept of time is non-existent in the aforementioned subspace, thus items like food will not rot, but he admitted that he should write down everything I put in here, Alfred sighed with relief, noting what a convenient magic his spatial ability was and that this was something that every merchant would desperately want. He rushed back to his father and asked, "Dad, are you finished talking with the village chief?" Who replied, "I have." Alfred's father asked him if he saw anything that caught your eye, and Alfred replied that he saw a stall that was selling these rainbow-colored mushrooms, which they looked really poisonous. Alfred's father suggested that since we still have time, how about we go try out some of the village's cooking? They entered a diner where the boss, Syria, happily greeted the feudal lordzama. Syria, happy to see them, told Alfred's father that thanks to the spaghetti recipe you gave me, we have been getting more customers than we can count, and Alfred's father replied, "Good day, Syrian," explaining that the credit is all thanks to this little guy here. Syria was impressed, saying, "How remarkable," and realizing that the boy must be Alfred Sama then asked if Alfred, "Do you have any other new recipes you want to try out?" To which Alfred replied he had a few but didn't have the tools or ingredients to make them out. Syria, pondering if it's tools, suggested how about asking Logan the blacksmith to make them for you, describing him as a bit stubborn but with one reliable smithy arm, which excited Alfred. Alfred was thrilled, exclaiming, really?" Realizing that unexpectedly, I was able to secure a way to get some new cooking utensils and that now that I can teleport to the village anytime I want, things are starting to look a lot more fun, marking the end of his visit to the village. Provocative question of whether a game was extremely popular in another world and the thought, this other world had a game like this? While the narrator suggests let's play some Reversi. Alfred prepared his materials on a wooden surface. Alfred decided it's time to make that, utilizing the material and tools I got from my visit to the village. He instructed the process. First, cut the planks into squares, then, carve an $8 × $8 grid onto the boards. He continued to craft the pieces, instructing to cut the lumber into small, circular pieces and finally, paint one of the sides black. Alfred proudly presented his completed Reversi set, exclaiming it was done and amazing, musing that it was a deep and complex game that only takes a minute to learn but a lifetime to master. He was startled when big sister Eleonora suddenly appeared, asking, "What's that?" Alfred, surprised, asked her when did you get in my room as she had scared him, and explained that the object was a game called Reversi, which Eleonora instantly wanted to learn how to play. Alfred explained the rules of Reversi. The goal is to change the color of the opposing player's pieces by trapping a piece in between two of your own, and the player who has the most pieces of their color wins. Eleonora, finding the rules easy, confidently declared, "Just you wait. I'll be sure to dye the entire board in my color," and was ready to give it a try. Alfred let Eleonora go first, warning her that he won't be holding back as she asked, "What?" And he watched her make her first move, flipping a piece to white. The game ended dramatically with Alfred winning with 56 points to 8, leaving Eleonora shocked, shouting, "Each, why?" Eleonora stared in stunned silence at the board, while Alfred gently called her, "Hey." Eleonora quickly recovered, declaring, "This is so fun," and demanded to play one more round. Eleonora continued to lose, shouting, "Why do I keep losing?" While Alfred calmly told her to just give up already, but she kept demanding, "One more time." The scene showed the family mansion, indicating the passage of time. Alfred finally had to stop, telling Eleonora it was almost time for supper, but she shouted, "I can still go on," and kept pleading, "One more time," while Alfred despaired that he had lost count how many times you've said that one line. Alfred's mother, Elena, entered, telling Eleonora and Al that it's already time for supper, asking what are the two of you doing. Eleonora excitedly explained the game to her mother, saying it's a game that Al taught me where by using your colored pieces, you try to capture and reverse the opponent's pieces. Elena looked at the board, stating she recognized this pattern, and asked if you place your pieces anywhere you want on the board, remarking that that sounds like quite the simple game. Alfred's mother agreed to give it a try, saying, "Sure," because she knew it. Elena immediately got absorbed in the game, demonstrating a move and saying, "Then this piece here is reversed," as she flipped a piece. Alfred's father, Nord, entered and asked Alfred where's Eleonora and Elena, noting that Eleonora was supposed to go and get you. Alfred told his father that they probably won't be coming anytime soon, and that he was not sure if something happened are the right words to use in this situation. Nord asked his son, Silvio, who was also in the room, if he can you see what the ladies are doing, to which Silvio replied, "Yes, father." Silvio reported the ladies were still playing, causing Alfred to exclaim, "Itch," and Nord resignedly realized it looks like we'll be having supper a little later today. Several tens of minutes later, Nord returned to the room, exasperated, demanding to know, What do you think you all are doing? Nord, completely fed up, announced that for now, I'll be prohibiting everyone from playing this game and I'll be confiscating the board in pieces, startling all 3 players who cried, "Yeah?" Alfred quietly observed the scene, realizing how frightening it was that providing too much fun can lead to addiction. He realized they were so immersed with the game that even if Dad were to lift the Reversi ban, I'll probably never see my board again because of Nay-san and the others, concluding that for everyone's sake, I'd better make another Reversi set. Alfred later encountered Bartolo, who was outside carrying a basket, and asked Alfred, "What are you doing in a place like this?" To which Alfred replied he was just some handicrafts. Bartolo revealed that rumor has spread that Alfred made this interesting little game, and insisted you better make me one too, which Alfred reluctantly questioned. Alfred sighed and agreed to make you one, reasoning that Bartolo has this pride he wants to crush by giving him something that this one guy who would go crazy for this sort of thing would love. Alfred then realized, what the did I use up the last of the material already? There's nothing left, and lamented that he would guess I should head out to the village to buy more then. He then had an epiphany, realizing that now that he's going back to the village, he also need to head on over to the blacksmith's place so I can get him to make me some cooking utensils. Alfred resolved that for the sake of living a comfortable slow life, I gotta hurry, confident that with new cooking utensils, I am sure to expand our culinary repertoire even more, even as his struggles continue. Aptek Bakelt is escaping Eleonora, as the narration asks where he is off to now, while a huge house is visible and the word AL is repeated in the speech bubbles. Eleonora Slowlet, age 10, suggests that since the weather is nice, they should go down to the lake. Alfred Slowlet, age 4, rushes away, realizing how close he was to being caught by a hair's breadth. The narrator, presumably Alfred, says he has come to Koliate village once again to meet up with the village blacksmith, Logan, mentioning how he previously invented gaming addiction in this world. 2 women are gossiping, talking about how they never expected the spaghetti to be such a big hit, and one wonders if she should give them the recipe for pancakes, noting that housewife gossip is always centered around food or their husbands. In a forest outside of town, a woman mentions that after the incident with the sugar, she'd rather not think about it. Alfred follows the directions that Sirius-san gave him, believing he should see Logan's house any second now. He arrives at a plain wooden house with a ladder leaning against it, exclaiming that here it is. Alfred calls out to Logan with a "pardon me," asking if the blacksmith is around. The interior of the workshop is visible, with tools, wires, and a bearded man, presumably Logan, working at a bench, his head bowed. Logan looks up and sternly tells the young boy that this is not a place for children and to go home. Alfred mentally concedes that Logan is right, that a workshop is not a place for kids and it is normal for him to assume the child is here to play around, but insists he is not just an average kid. Alfred ignores the rejection and exclaims, "Logan-san," shouting that he wants the blacksmith to make him something. Logan dismisses him, saying he has no time for the boy's childish games and not to give him crap, while Alfred acknowledges he had a feeling things would turn out like this. Alfred, still standing his ground, explains that Sirius-san said Logan-san would surely help him, concluding that he is not giving up. Alfred threatens that he will just have to go back and tell Sirius-san that Logan-san wasn't much help. The blacksmith instantly stops the boy with a panicked, "Wait right there," as Alfred recalls Sirius-san's advice that he should always have a trump card ready, and merely saying her name would make Logan give in. Logan is now much calmer, standing over his forge and asking Alfred what exactly he wants him to make, saying he will at least listen to what the kid has to say. Logan muses that anyone in the village who had the guts to deceive him using Sirius-san's name would face serious consequences, but Alfred is quick to point out that he could be using Sirius-san's name to deceive him into helping. Alfred is surprised by the sudden change in Logan's demeanor, noting he was so stern just a second ago, and internally asks what Sirius-san did to the guy, concluding that they have no chance of winning against her. After settling down at a small table for tea, Alfred asks Logan what he specializes in making. Logan replies that he makes pans, farming tools, cutlery, and even swords, but that cutlery is his specialty and forte. Alfred is impressed that the blacksmith can make a lot of different things, while Logan thinks that a town's blacksmith must at least know how to make this type of stuff. Alfred then asks Logan-san if he can make him a knife and a frying pan, leading Logan to question why he needs a frying pan, and if any old circular one, like the ones hanging on the wall, won't do. Alfred begins describing the frying pan he wants, saying he wants a square one with a handle that is slanted a bit up. Alfred magically conjures a small notebook and pencil with a quick teleport to draw the design for Logan. Logan observes the drawing, noting that it is a 4-sided frying pan, and comments that this would be his first time making one. 1 week later, Alfred is seen standing outside the house, exclaiming, "Yua! Thank you so much." Alfred looks pleased at the 2 gleaming square pans that Logan has finished, saying they look great and pretty easy to use. Alfred asks Logan if he has any eggs because he can show him right now how to use the pan if Logan lends him his kitchen and some ingredients, before noting that he also has sugar, which Logan confirms he can lend a little of, along with some salt. Logan tells Alfred to sit tight and warm up by the stove for a bit, as it will take a while for it to heat up, and Alfred agrees. Alfred surveys the kitchen, noting that wherever he looks, everything is pretty banged up, deciding he will help Logan by fixing up the place with his magic. While repairing the holes in the wall, Alfred remarks that he can at least do things at this level, which leads Logan to express his surprise that the boy is able to use magic at such a young age, noting it must be a huge help. Logan continues by saying Alfred is incredibly convenient and acts pretty mature despite his age, and that magic seems like it could be useful in other aspects of life, while Alfred says he tries his best to practice every day. Logan, watching Alfred use the square pan to cook an egg dish, compliments the boy's skill and asks if he has any plans on becoming a chef in the future. Alfred presents the finished dish, which is a rolled omelet, as Logan finally understands why he asked for a square frying pan. Logan takes a bite and exclaims that it is delicious, and Alfred says, "That's great." Logan continues to eat and explains that by layering the eggs, you get a pleasant texture as you eat it, unlike the fried and scrambled eggs he eats often, and thinks that if this method of preparing eggs were to popularize, orders for the square frying pan would be flocking in. Logan now holds the square pan and agrees there is no doubt about the potential business, concluding that he better start preparing now. Alfred thinks that he may have created another addict, but asks Logan if he would be able to eat this at Syria's diner, to which Logan excitedly confirms, you can," showing Alfred that he was able to obtain the cooking utensils without any trouble. The narrative states that the diligent 4-year-old is very busy with his inventions and magic practice, but now it is time for an afternoon nap. The boy raises his hand, looking up. He is seen in a wide shot in front of a sturdy house he constructed with earth magic as he explains he is practicing to increase his magic capacity. He reflects on the first time he used earth magic to build a house, noting that it looked more like a jail cell and that his proficiency in earth magic is steadily improving. He looks at the countryside landscape with fields and a few small homes, observing that since it's the countryside, there's a lot of empty land around, and he wants to find a good place next time to make himself something like a vacation house. He sits down, sighing that he is so tired and has been pretty busy as of late, realizing he has used up the last of his magic. He returns to a town setting, recognizing that his inventions, like Reversi and the food Tamagoyaki, are becoming popular. He speaks to a woman who confirms his thoughts, explaining that after hearing about his inventions, people came flocking into the diner, which was used as the venue for a Reversi tournament. The woman greets Alfred-sama, and another person in the crowd, Herman, chimes in that he did his best to supply a bunch of boards, confirming that they had enough boards. Alfred sees the villagers crowded around Herman, who is looking exhausted, waiting for their Reversi sets, and realizes that everyone is pretty starved for entertainment. Alfred remembers that Syria-san needed him for something today, and the woman confirms that she has a special prize for the winner of the Reversi tournament. Alfred is shocked as the woman explains the prize is a special match between the winner of the tournament and the Reversi inventor himself. The woman, Syria, introduces the winner, her dear daughter Carla, the diner head's daughter, and Carla politely replies that it's a pleasure. The crowd is excited for the special match, with people shouting words of good luck to both players, and Alfred sighs and says, "Fine," resigning himself to the match. Carla smiles and shakes Alfred's hand, stating that since she is 12 years old, she is much older than Alfred-sama, but that doesn't mean she'll be holding anything back. Alfred agrees, saying the same for him, emphasizing his position as the person who introduced Reversi to this world and as the son of the area's feudal lord. Activating serious mode, Alfred holds a peace and declares he will show the villagers a match worthy of praise, telling Carla to have a good match. The match ends quickly, and the onlookers gasp in disbelief and shock, with one person calling it Alfred-sama's complete victory and another saying it's impossible. Carla smiles brightly and tells Alfred that he is really strong, but she will be sure to win next time, and he replies that he'll have a match with her anytime. Alfred's father pats Carla's head, commenting that it was a good match and that she is like mother, like daughter, while Alfred thinks to himself that she is good, as expected from Syria-san's daughter. Inside the bustling diner, a waiter asks Carla for a hand, and Syria-san is inundated with requests from the customers for Tamagoyaki. Alfred, seeing the commotion, realizes that Tamagoyaki also became a hit, and Syria, who is busy, says she is glad to hear it, as she has been busy thanks to the spaghetti and Tamagoyaki recipes he gave her. Syria, noting she is a bit short-handed due to the influx of customers, suggests it would be reassuring if Alfred could come over and help every now and then, but Alfred says in that case he will just teach Bartolo the recipe and dispatch him here, which Syria happily accepts as a huge help. Alfred sits on the ground outside his home, tired from all the activity, concluding that there's this and that, but it's for the sake of living a comfortable, slow life, even though he is so busy. He decides to head on home and just take it easy for the rest of the afternoon. He arrives at the stone-walled feudal lord's mansion, his home. Alfred wakes up and stretches, feeling like he slept well, deciding to head to the kitchen to talk to Bartolo about something. He pauses, hearing a faint noise, and realizes the sound is coming from the maid's break room, recognizing the voices as belonging to Sarah and Alfred-sama, the subject of their conversation, wonders who the third voice belongs to. Alfred listens in as the maids gossip, realizing one voice belongs to head maid Mel and the other to Mina, and Mel comments on Alfred-sama's eyes, noting that he lacks all ambition, but the maids continue their excited discussion, mentioning how it's hard to believe Alfred-sama is only 4 years old, and that the ideas for spaghetti, Tamagoyaki, and Reversi all came from him, also noting that he can use magic. Mina, the maid with the sweet tooth, mentions that she heard the flavor of the Tamagoyaki changes if you add some sugar, and the other maid asks where she heard that from. Mina reveals she overheard Bartolo-san and Alfred-sama talking while they were in the kitchen, as Alfred, listening from the hallway, wonders when the heck he talked about that, and the other maid is intrigued by the mention of sugar. Alfred finds Bartolo, who is cooking with a basket of eggs, and Bartolo greets him, asking if he's here and what he's making today, and Alfred explains he thought he'd try experimenting by mixing up ingredients together. Alfred tells Bartolo he was thinking of adding tomatoes, and asks if Bartolo has any good ideas, and Bartolo suggests mixing in some green onion, which Alfred says sounds good and they should try. Bartolo casually mentions that he just overheard Mina talking with the other maids, leading Alfred to panic, realizing the info about adding the thing that shall not be mentioned, sugar, into Tamagoyaki has been leaked. Bartolo is shocked and asks if it's true about the sugar, and Alfred confirms it, telling Bartolo that is why he has to be careful and needs to hurry and hide the sugar immediately. Bartolo runs off, and Alfred narrates that they're acting like kingpins of an underground drug emporium scrambling to get away with the goods, telling Bartolo he should be fine but to be careful too. Suddenly, one of the maids, Mel, confronts a panicked Bartolo-san, asking if it is true that Tamagoyaki will be even tastier if you add in some sugar. Bartolo and Alfred are frozen in a wide-eyed, tense moment with the approaching maid. Bartolo is sweating as he holds a few small jars of what is presumably the sugar. Mel accuses Bartolo of having sugar in his hands, but Bartolo frantically denies it, claiming it's just salt, and that she got it wrong, only for Mel to casually point out that the stuff in his hands is not salt. Bartolo is defeated, quietly confirming it's sugar. Mel, with an intense expression, declares her intuition says that there has to be more and it's time to find it, continuing to search for the hidden sugar, while Bartolo says he told her there isn't any more here. Bartolo pleads with Mel to, please stop. I'm begging you, as he realizes his mistake, because Mel interprets his denial of any more being here to mean he's hiding more in another location with his subspace storage magic, a power that Alfred thinks sure is nice. The narrative announces that Alfred is 6 years old now, and although he may have gotten taller, he's still a child at the age where he wants to play more than study. Alfred looks toward the manor with a thoughtful huh and a soft noise. He reveals that the moment he turned 6 years old, he immediately started his education, and now he is currently studying. The subjects Alfred is studying are history, arithmetic, and etiquette, and he mentions that the groaning noises are coming from his elder sister, Eleonora, as she battles the menace called math. Eleonora shouts that she doesn't get this one bit and wonders how it came to this, while Alfred, who is a college graduate from his past life, thinks that math is just that type of demon. Eleonora, with a determined expression, states that she wants to be the best in the neighborhood and doesn't want to lose to anyone, confirming she is a good student when it comes to swordplay. She adds that Dad's the exception, of course. Alfred's older brother, Silvio Nisan, walks up to Alfred, thinking that Alfred is a whole lot cooler compared to Eleonora Nisan. Alfred tells Silvio that he heard he's been a huge hit with the ladies in the village recently, and Silvio immediately denies it, saying that can't be true. Alfred notices Silvio is feigning ignorance and feels jealous. Alfred's mother, Elena, approaches and asks what's wrong with Alfred and if there's a part of the lesson he did not understand. Alfred mentally complains that he can solve these problems with ease, but if he were to solve them too quickly, his mother would just keep giving him more problems to do, so he is putting in minimal effort because he wants to go out and play. Elena, smiling, tells Alfred that is just what she wanted to hear and will end today's lesson if he can solve those problems. Eleonora cries out in frustration that today's problems are difficult and that she wasn't able to understand a thing, even though her mother points out that Eleonora's problems are just review problems from last week. Alfred quickly finishes his set of problems and tells his mother he is done, which surprises her, while Eleonora screams in disbelief, realizing Alfred-sama is already done. Before Alfred can leave, the maid, Sarah-san, suddenly appears and stops him, reminding him that they still have yet to check over his answers, so class is not over yet. The problems on the paper are simple arithmetic, such as $5 plus 4 equals $9. Elena, Alfred's mother, checks his answers and declares that everything is correct and he may go, while Eleonora pouts that it's unfair because her problems are so much harder, and Alfred celebrates his freedom. Alfred steps outside, relishing the refreshing outside air, as Eleonora sadly calls after Al to ask if his studies are over for the day. Alfred is immediately surprised to see his father, who says the timing is good because he was able to finish his work and his mother let him out, and asks Alfred how about they go outside and do some sword practice since he's going out to play anyway. Alfred is disappointed, but his father insists that any time is a good time for sword practice, and asks if they aren't going to have sword practice this afternoon. Alfred reluctantly participates in the sword practice, deciding he should at least make a little effort with his swordsmanship since he is doing well with his magic practice, while his father tells him it's important to have a little father-son time and instructs him to have a steady grip. His father gives him repeated instruction, telling him it's not enough to just swing his arms and to close his armpits more, then immediately ordering him to perform $100 practice swings. Alfred is exhausted and breathing hard after the practice, commenting that he'd actually prefer studying over this, but his father compliments him, saying his swordsmanship improved quite a bit. Alfred's father pats him on the head, saying he knew it and that they'll be practicing again in the afternoon, telling Alfred to do his best. Alfred sighs in resignation and says he doesn't want to go to the afternoon swordsmanship practice. Alfred is later seen watching an intense sword fight at what looks like a ruin or practice field, noticing that Eleonora-san is having a match. The screen titles the match as Eleonora versus Silvio. The match begins with Eleonora telling Silvio to begin and asking him what's wrong when he seems hesitant. Eleonora, agile and quick, easily evades Silvio's attack and strikes him, declaring, "It's my win." Silvio clutches his head in pain and says, "That hurts," as Eleonora, standing over him, asks Al if he wants to have a match too, which Al silently refuses. Alfred observes the scene, watching the two maids, Sarah and Mina, peeking out the window from the distance, and muses that today has been another peaceful day because everyone's having fun. After the match, Silvio consoles Eleonora, saying they're just more fit for studying than fighting is all, revealing that he had a match with Dad afterward and ended up just like Silvio Nissan. Suspicious shadow lurking in Alfred's dream home base that he built with his earth magic. An image shows the idyllic, cottage-style house Alfred constructed. Alfred stands outside the house, thinking to himself that today's the day he finally starts making that swing set. He is suddenly shocked by the sight of someone lying on the ground. Alfred looks closer at the man sleeping on the ground, who he dubs this old-timer. Alfred pokes the man and says, "Hey, it's lunchtime," but observes that there's no sign of him waking up anytime soon and wonders how to wake him up. The man instantly springs up in a muscular, wide-eyed rage, shouting, "Lunch?" and asking if someone said lunch. Alfred, unfazed, tells the man, who he calls a brat, that the question, "Who the hell are you?" is Alfred's line, as the man was just sleeping in the house that Alfred built. The man asks, "Seriously? If this isn't just his everyday rest area?" And Alfred tells him not to go condescending on other people's home bases like that, then introduces himself as Alfred and asks the old-timer who he is, noting the man has taken quite an interest in the furniture. The muscular man, smiling broadly, finally introduces himself as Roomba, saying, "Nice to meet." Alfred stares blankly at the circular object floating above his head, asking in his mind if the man's name is Roomba as in the vacuum. Roomba, now shirtless, happily exclaims that Alfred has a nice place here. Roomba, surprised there is a bathing area too, emerges clean and refreshed, and Alfred hands him some ale, asking if he also washed his clothes because they reeked of stink, and Roomba thanks Alfred for knowing how to treat a guest. Roomba is shocked, shouting that the ale's ice cold. He asks if Alfred has a magic tool that produces ice, and Alfred casually replies that he made the ale cold using ice magic, leading Roomba to gasp that Alfred can use magic at his young age. Alfred shows Roomba a huge plate of spaghetti and asks if he came here from the royal capital, and Roomba muses that he recalls that the princess in this country can also use ice magic. Roomba, excited by the food, exclaims that this is the rumored spaghetti everyone has been raving about, and tells Alfred to hold off on talking until he's finished filling up his stomach. Roomba mentions that an acquaintance of his named Triela told him about the spaghetti, and Alfred instantly recognizes her, saying, "Ah, you mean Tri-san." Suddenly, a maid, Mina, appears and shouts in excitement to Sarah-san that she got some sugar, revealing that she found it behind a hidden door. Alfred's friend, who he calls Tri-san, profusely apologizes, realizing his own conversation with Roomba may have tipped off the maids about the sugar, as the maids thank Tri-san for the information. Alfred's friend is mortified, fearing he won't be able to show his face in this village anymore if he makes the ladies in Culinary village his enemies. Roomba, oblivious to the drama, asks Alfred if something happened, and Alfred says no, it's nothing, but internally threatens to definitely give him a piece of his mind next time, because thereafter, they took away Alfred's snacks for a week. Roomba reveals his identity as a B-rank adventurer of this country, the fourth from the top, and says he has a passion for traveling and visiting other villages, and Alfred says he sees. Roomba explains he was wondering where to head to next when Triela told him about Culinary, and he decided to see this place for himself, so Alfred confirms that's how it was. Roomba observes that Culinary village has a population of 400 people and is pretty far away from the neighboring kingdom's capital with 100,000 people, saying he didn't expect the village to be this far, but remarks that the immigration rate has increased. Roomba then says the village is pretty tranquil and cozy, and he's thinking about staying here for a while, before asking Alfred what he plans to do now. Alfred asks Roomba if he has decided on an inn yet, and Roomba asks if he can't just stay here since there's even a kitchen and a bath, which Alfred agrees to if Roomba can take care of himself. Roomba, surprised by Alfred's suggestion, asks, "Wait a minute. You're the one living here, right?" Revealing that the house is Alfred's second house and he lives in another house. Alfred confirms he is the Slowlet family's second son and his family lives in a mansion just a bit away from the village that belongs to the feudal lord, who is also his father, Nord Slowlet, making Roomba wonder why that name sounds familiar. Alfred's father, Nord the Dragonslayer, is introduced with his cringe-worthy nickname. The story flashes back to years ago when a dragon had started ravaging through the royal capital, and a man named Nord played an active role in the dragon's subjugation. Roomba is surprised, saying he didn't know that and that he was in the same party Nord belonged to at that time, even though that was the only time they actually fought side by side. Alfred thinks that there's no way his father would forget someone with Roomba's impact of a personality, and tells Roomba that he's sure his father still remembers him too, while Roomba nostalgically recalls Nord's gallantry clearly. Alfred knew his father knew a remarkable adventurer back in his prime, but his father never went into detail about it, probably because of that embarrassing nickname. Roomba suddenly shouts that he knows what to do and excitedly orders Alfred to bring him on over to the mansion, while Alfred is shocked and asks, if AL's already fed up with trying to enjoy the slow life. The scene opens on the large, stone mansion where Alfred lives with his family. Inside the mansion, a maid, Mina, asks Roomba to please wait a moment while she calls for Nord-sama. Roomba, sitting comfortably on a luxurious couch, remarks that the mansion is surely amazing and asks Alfred if this is his residence, while Alfred sighs, having no choice but to bring him here because Roomba latched onto him with a pitiful look and wouldn't let go. Alfred's mother, Elena, enters the room, surprised to see a guest, and asks who it might be. Roomba immediately shouts in recognition, yelling, "H!" and identifying Elena as that mage from that one time who was head over heels for Nord. Elena looks surprised and Alfred and Roomba look back at her. Elena is flustered and embarrassed, covering her face and pleading with Roomba to stop that, saying that was a long time ago. Roomba laughs and says, "Of course I would. Remember her," adding there's no way someone would forget a person like her, while Alfred quietly notes he thinks this is his first time seeing his mom in this kind of state. Alfred muses that this is probably what his mom's true personality was like before she became a prim, proper lady, and notes that she still doesn't look a day over 30. Roomba, with a mischievous grin, tells Elena to stop with the embarrassment because AL's watching, pointing at Alfred. Elena immediately regains her composure and tells Alfred to go get some candy in the living room as a reward for keeping their guest company in an attempt to get him to leave. Alfred asks his mom what's wrong, thinking she keeps treating him like a child by suggesting he go get candy, but he knows she's doing it to preserve her parental dignity. Alfred turns to his mother with a knowing smile and tells her that her flustered face was cute, which completely shocks her. Alfred laughs internally, satisfied to see her flustered face a little more. Alfred finally leaves, saying there's some candy with his name on it and that he should go now, as his mother whispers to him to please stop teasing her. In the hallway, Silvio and Sarah notice Alfred and remark that it seems like he brought them a guest. Silvio is shocked when he sees Roomba and immediately shouts, "It's the Dragon Slayer." Sarah is perplexed, asking, "Dragon what?" Silvio screams for Alfred to hold up and not ignore him, demanding to know where he heard that from, while Alfred walks away, thinking that he knew it was an embarrassing nickname and he is ignoring his brother's question. The scene shifts to the exterior of the training grounds, signaling it's the next day. Eleonora and Roomba are sparring intently with swords. Alfred's father, Nord, tells Alfred that he wants to go all out with today's sword training after talking about old times with Roomba yesterday, and suggests Alfred practice with Dad today. Nord quickly attacks Alfred, tripping him and causing him to fall with a surprised H. Nord's sword is poised just inches away from Alfred's face. Alfred, scrambling to get up, asks his father if he doesn't think today's training is a bit too intense because he was just tripped, but Nord casually says of course not. Alfred wonders if this intense training is punishment for what he said yesterday or if his dad is mad because he was teasing him about his nickname. Alfred's mother, Elena, and sister, Eleonora, cheer him on, telling him to hang in there and get up already, with Alfred noting that Mom is intense too. Elena then engages Alfred, telling him he's hiding his true intentions and the fact that he's supposed to be cheering for the cute little guy to win is less subtle than Dad's actions. Alfred gets up and shouts, "Yes, sir." Finally, when Nord says this last bout will be the end of the lesson, telling Alfred to do his best. Alfred sees an opportunity, noticing that Eleonora is right now pretty immersed with her match against Roomba, and realizes with this, he has an opening. Nord lunges at Alfred and tells him to try to see if he can land a hit on Daddy, adding that if he can't, his sword might, accidentally, strike him on the head, which motivates Alfred to realize he can finally have the afternoon all to himself to spend however he wants. Nord smiles enigmatically while Alfred thinks that no matter how many times Nord lands a blow to his head, Alfred will never forget about the Dragon Slayer nickname, daring his father to taunt him more. Alfred is confused when Nord goes silent, asking if they aren't having a taunt battle. Nord suddenly attacks. Alfred is sent flying through the air, wondering, what the death? Eleonora runs over to check on a dazed Alfred, who explains that nothing hurts, but he couldn't see Dad's movement at all. Alfred lies on the ground, content with the fact that the sky is pretty blue today. A maiden's heart is difficult to understand, as the narrative ponders how something too good to be true is scary, and notes that even the always troubled Eleonora can also have a maiden's heart. The panel shows an ornate, curtained window. Eleonora looks down at Alfred, who is in bed, and shouts, He's awake. Alfred wakes up, confused and asking himself, who am I? Where am I? Before remembering his past life as Inaka Yuji and his current name, Alfred. He recalls that if he's not mistaken, today he was doing some sword training with Dad when he was shaken awake by Eleonora, who asks if he is alright and if anything hurts, while another voice, presumably Roomba's, tells Eleonora she shouldn't be shaking him like that. Eleonora quickly says she was worried because Alfred had a dead fish look in his eyes, but the other voice points out he was born with those eyes, and Eleonora concedes that he's right. Alfred sees the worried faces of Eleonora and Roomba, wondering what happened to their concern just moments ago. Roomba places his hand on Alfred's head, relieved that Al finally woke up, asking Eleonora if she is trying to pick a fight with him. Eleonora looks incredibly angry, wondering why she couldn't land a single hit when it really mattered, while Roomba proudly announces that since he won their little match, he'll have the privilege of taking the little guy along with him for the whole day tomorrow. Roomba, holding his sword, asks Eleonora, who also has her sword drawn, if she is giving up, but she immediately shouts, "Of course not. I can still go on." Roomba looks intrigued, saying, "Oh," as Eleonora firmly tells him she is not going to admit defeat and that he heard her. Roomba gives Eleonora a wide grin and says he would have expected nothing less from the Dragon Slayer's daughter and that this little missy has some serious fighting spirit in her. Eleonora is exhausted and begs her dad to give her a moment to rest for a bit, telling him to at least count to 30 as he decides to count to 10, while Roomba thinks the boy over there is night and day compared to her. Eleonora, now recovered, asks Roomba if he is sure it's okay to take his eyes off his opponent, asking what he thinks would have happened if she attacked while he was open like that. Roomba is impressed and asks, "What was that?" but then casually remarks that he was nice enough to give her enough time to catch her breath too, to which Eleonora shouts that he is how mean. Eleonora tells Roomba not to go easy on her just because he thinks she's a child, and Roomba seriously replies he would do no such thing, especially since she shows so much promise. Roomba instructs Eleonora to use her agility to her advantage and try to land a hit on him, asking if she thinks she can land a hit on him in her sad, weary state. Roomba explains that he has lived more than double her lifetime, meaning his trained body has accumulated much more experience and stamina than hers, and that her reckless and irrational strikes would never graze a seasoned warrior like him. Eleonora is visibly frustrated, saying Roomba can act pretty cool sometimes, but it kind of pisses her off. Eleonora asks Roomba to please have another match with her, but Roomba declines, saying, "Thank you, I think I'm fine now," and Eleonora accepts with a sigh. Roomba looks at the tired Eleonora, thinking she may say she's fine, but he's sure she is slowly reaching her stamina's breaking point, and suggests that in that case they should place a bet. Roomba proposes that they have themselves a little bet, asking if she wants to bet, and Eleonora asks what the bet is. Eleonora accepts the bet, saying, "You're on." When Roomba announces that the winner will have the privilege of spending the whole day tomorrow playing with the kiddo. A large sound effect marks the moment the bet is finalized. Roomba congratulates Eleonora, saying she really did her best out there, and hands her a drink, while she pouts that she was so close and it's how frustrating. Roomba smiles and says, "There you have it." Roomba walks toward the door and says, "See ya tomorrow," as Eleonora shouts that next time, she'll be sure to win. Alfred, lying in bed, realizes the match and bet were made without even telling him and wonders what about his input. Eleonora brings a tray of food and water to Alfred, saying it's ready for him, and that she'll just leave it here, and he thanks her. Eleonora, concerned he doesn't have enough energy, suggests she can spoon-feed him herself, but Alfred declines, saying he can feed himself. Alfred wonders if Eleonora clicked her tongue just now, noting that her short answer reeks of good-for-nothing intentions, while Eleonora denies it, saying, "No, it's nothing." Alfred knows that whenever a girl is visibly mad and utters the words, "it's nothing," it means she is definitely concealing her true intentions and he is in serious trouble. Eleonora mentally says that obviously, it's not nothing, but she doesn't want to talk about it, even though she says, "It's nothing." Eleonora, standing by the door, tells Alfred he should cut down on the idle chit-chat and needs to rest, saying she'll be going now, and Alfred thanks her for everything and notes that she was the one doing most of the talking. Eleonora smiles and waves goodbye as Alfred lies in bed. Eleonora closes the door and sighs as Alfred listens, and he hears her wishing that she really wanted to have Al go, so she can feed him too, while Alfred sighs with relief that he finally has some peace and quiet. Alfred looks out the window and sighs, saying, "But?" He smiles, thinking that he's glad they were worried about him. He clenches his fist in relief and joy, concluding that on this beautiful day, the ability to stay in and laze around is the best, and moreover, Alfred sitting on the ground, looking tired, indicating that Al's already fed up with trying to enjoy his slow life. The next morning, Roomba arrives to pick Alfred up for their outing, as Alfred narrates that he spent the entire day yesterday lazing around due to his concussion. Roomba, smiling, greets Al, and checks to make sure Alfred's sanity should be all better by now, and demands that they go now, while Alfred wonders about the strange way Roomba phrased his question about his sanity, noting that Roomba wanted him to be his tour guide to explore the village. Roomba, looking out over a wide field, exclaims, "Ho!" at the sight of wheat as far as the eye can see, and Alfred confirms that during autumn, the bright green wheat will probably turn into a beautiful golden color. Alfred reflects that the wheat is there to always give people a warm welcome when entering the village and a proper send-off when it's time to leave, much like a mother. The scene shifts to show the Culinary village, where the building infrastructure and layout begin to get more compact as one heads deeper into the village to reach the village square. Alfred notes that it seems to be a rule that newcomers have their houses and sheds built a short distance away from the center of the village, but depending on the circumstances, stores and workplaces would be built purposefully on the outskirts or closer to the center if needed. He explains that it's common to find places like a blacksmith's workshop on the outskirts of a village because the noise won't bother as many people and it's easier to gather firewood for kindling, while diners and inns would be built near places where people are likely to gather around, but mentions that Logan-san lives on the outskirts by choice and not because of his profession. The houses located near the central part of the village belong mainly to the people that lived in the village the longest and to the people who have service industry jobs, leading Roomba to observe that the village must be bustling. As they continue walking, Alfred is surprised when Roomba greets someone, introducing him as one of his dad's acquaintances, and the man greets Herman-san. Herman shows Roomba a finished product, and Roomba is surprised, asking what's this thing, with Herman proudly replying that it's their village's specialty, and Alfred interjects to say the design is one that he came up with himself. Alfred mentally observes that Roomba seems to be curious about every little thing, just what one would expect from an adventurer. They arrive at the diner where a hungry Roomba is eating a meal and loudly praises it, saying it is so tasty and calling it a real lifesaver since he thought he was going to die from starvation. Alfred questions Roomba, asking if adventurers don't pack the bare necessities and enough food for their travels or at least restock in the closest town en route, and asks if Roomba says he was going to die from starvation. Roomba looks embarrassed and says, about that, explaining that he would normally always buy a large quantity of rations when running low. The scene shifts to a past memory where Roomba sees two hungry kids huddled together. Roomba recalls that he found two kids who looked like they were starving and gave them his food because they needed the food more than he did. He reveals that is why he was without any more food for the rest of his way here. Alfred finally understands, saying, so that's why he was sleeping in my base, and Roomba concludes that in the end he barely made it to the village as is. Roomba smiles and says he is now here, enjoying this delicious spaghetti. Alfred, still curious, tells Roomba that he didn't know a slum like that existed on the road to the village. They arrive at the village square where people are busy bartering, and Roomba says he's getting hungry and tells Alfred, let's go grab a bite to eat. Alfred suggests they head on over to Sirius-san's diner, saying he knows the place, and Roomba, taking out a coin, asks if he has any money and says he'll give Alfred one. Roomba proudly declares he has one whole gold coin with him, telling Alfred to leave everything to him, while Alfred realizes he does have some money after all. Alfred tells Roomba that since they rarely use gold coins here he can't use that, asking in surprise if Roomba was actually planning to pay for the meal with a gold coin, thinking that using that would probably just cause trouble. Alfred realizes that since the diner has been raking in quite the profit as of late, it'd probably be alright at Sirius diner, but then wonders how a diner makes that much money anyways. Alfred tells Roomba, well, you'll see when we get there, as they walk towards the diner. They arrive at the incredibly spacious diner, with Alfred noting that other diners he's come across in other villages were much more compact and that this place is pretty big because it got an expansion due to certain circumstances. Alfred sees people playing the games he invented, noticing that they were just betting their side dishes on their Reversi match, and someone mentions a man named Roland-san lost again, and another person identifies him as the wheat field guy. Alfred overhears a conversation, mentioning that Roland-san just never learns his lesson and that it's not surprising that he loses most of the time with his attitude, noting that it was Logan-san first, and now it's Roland-san who likes to play Reversi even though he sucks at it. Roomba finds a small, circular item on the floor and asks, what's this? And Alfred explains, that's a Reversi piece, adding that even nighttime here is extremely busy due to this game. The narration explains that thanks to Reversi and shogi, the diner got cramped really quickly, which is why the diner got an expansion. A flashback shows Triela selling Reversi games, and Alfred explains that last year, he handed over the selling rights for Reversi to Tri-san, and the Slowlet family will receive a percentage of the profits based on the number of games sold, showing a connection to Triela's shop and the mansion's revenue. A cheerful man at the diner asks Roomba if he'd care for a game of Reversi since he's a new face, while Alfred explains that, surprisingly, this world also has a patent system in place, and without it, craftsmen who specialize in making magic tools wouldn't get recognized for their hard work. The cheerful man shows Roomba how to play a piece, with Roomba responding, "Oh, I see," and saying he places the pieces like this. Roomba, satisfied, tells the cheerful man, alright, that he got the gist of it now, and won't have much trouble with these rules, while the man responds, "That's the spirit." The cheerful man asks Roomba if he would wager an order of Tamagoyaki on the game, explaining that Roomba wouldn't know what Tamagoyaki is because he's a beginner, and Alfred notes that the man is immediately picking on the beginner. Roomba, however, is not a beginner, and he grabs a piece of Tamagoyaki from the cheerful man's plate, shouting, "Why? That's my Tamagoyaki," with Roomba's companion saying he wouldn't be saying that if it was his Tamagoyaki on the line. Roomba, with a mischievous grin, tells the cheerful man, whose name is Roland, that he guesses he'll take a small bite then as he takes a huge mouthful. Roland is shocked, saying he thought Roomba said a small bite, as he sees his plate empty and Alfred's companion notes he ate the whole thing in one big bite for a big lug like him. Roomba, delighted by the taste, shouts, "Delicious! Give me seconds," only to be told by Roland to, "No way. Save it for later." Reversi comes first. Roland tells Roomba that if he wants to eat any more Tamagotchi, he's going to have to beat him first, and Roomba's companion asks Alfred if he can drag Roomba outside into the alley and beat him up, but Alfred explains he means beat him in a game of Reversi. Roomba and Roland are engrossed in the game, with Roomba shouting "Poh" and concentrating. Roomba and Roland play pieces with sharp, determined movements. Roland smiles and tells Roomba, who is panicking and holding a piece, that he doesn't have anywhere to place his piece, which means he has no choice but to pass. Roland's companion greets Syria-san, as Alfred comments that Roland comes here every day. Syria explains that if the afternoon already has this many people, then nighttime is even more strenuous because people drink a lot during the night hours, and brawls frequently break out, forcing the frail Syria to step in to manage things. Alfred, surprised that fights occur often around here, laughs nervously, while Syria's companion realizes he didn't know that, and an internal thought bubble notes that Syria is so strong that even her husband can't stand a chance against her. Syria, with a determined look and a clench of her fist, proudly states that when such an incident erupts, her husband will get in there and POW. Alfred shivers, thinking Syria's moves are surprisingly agile and scary, as Syria explains that when a husband is out of control, she's the one that lets him have it, like when he's ogling at other women or ditching work to play hooky. Roland asks Alfred-sama if he can come with him for a bit. Roland asks Alfred if he would mind washing these dishes for him, and Alfred sighs and says, "Yes, ma'am," as Roland bumps a bowl with his head. Alfred tells Roland he never learns his lesson either, and Roland says, "You said one word too many." Roland points out that all the ideas Alfred came up with, the Tamagotchi, the Reversi, the shogi, and the square frying pan used to make it, were the reason for all this commotion, asking if Alfred is an idiot because he made the same blunder yesterday when he was fighting his old man. Roland's companion says the answer to the question of whether Alfred is an idiot is one of the 7 mysteries of the village, since the difference between a moron and a genius is paper thin, and tells Roland not to get impatient because they still have plenty of time. Roland smiles at Alfred, exclaiming, "Give me another round of alcohol," as Alfred hangs his head, wondering, why me? Alfred writing on a small sheet of paper while standing next to the massive, smiling figure of Roomba. A week has passed since Roomba arrived at the village, and Alfred narrates that he has begun charging Roomba lodging fees for staying at his home base. Roomba happily thanks Alfred, admitting that his home base is much more extravagant than any inn and a comfortable place to stay, while Alfred thinks Roomba keeps constantly disturbing his peace and notes Roomba has been repeatedly refusing to stay at their mansion. Alfred asks Roomba if it was alright to not invite Eleonora today, and Roomba responds that he already told Nord they were leaving and suggests that having Eleonora would make it easier to take down their prey from multiple vantage points for an instant extermination. Roomba tells Alfred to suppress his presence as much as possible and watch his step, admitting he has a point, and Alfred agrees, saying he got it. Alfred and Roomba head out into the forest so Alfred can experience Roomba's knowledge as an adventurer firsthand, observing that Roomba's footwork is silent, void of any unnecessary movement. Alfred thinks to himself that he is starting to run low on food in his home base, and this outing is just for today, so it's not like he's kicking Roomba out. As they walk through the forest, they spot a large rabbit, but it quickly flees. Roomba easily dispatches a wild boar with a swiftly thrown rock, which hits the animal's head. Alfred is astonished, asking, "How in the world does a guy with a build like that move so quietly?" noting the force of the strike that took down the boar. Alfred continues to struggle with erasing his presence as effectively as Roomba. Roomba, who is carrying the boar, asks Alfred if something is wrong. Roomba senses a monster approaching, specifically a goblin, and Alfred is shocked to hear the word monster. Alfred explains that the forest around the mansion is usually safer than others, but venturing deeper makes encounters with boars and monsters more common, and wonders if the goblin got separated from its group. He reflects that protecting the people is the duty of the feudal lord, so adventurers or a vigilance corps are employed to take care of the job against monsters and bandits. They quickly come face to face with a goblin. The goblin asks Alfred if this is his first time seeing a monster, and Alfred replies that he's actually seen one before and gazed at it from a distance. The monster Alfred saw before was a snowy white winged wolf, and he immediately made a break for it the moment he saw it, recalling that his dad and the vigilance corps went off to subjugate it after the encounter. Roomba notes that although goblins are usually equipped with a crude blade, this one's weapon of choice is a small log, and it has a small build. Roomba suddenly asks Alfred if he wants to try battling it with a sword, causing Alfred to shout in disbelief, asking Roomba if he realizes what he's asking a 6-year-old kid to do, and if he remembers his track record with swordsmanship. Roomba, hearing Alfred mention his swordsmanship, remembers that Alfred specializes in magic, noting that if Alfred has any hopes of winning, he would have to use magic. Alfred sees the goblin look at them and says, "Oh crap, I think it noticed us." Roomba instantly assumes a combat stance, warning Alfred to keep his distance because this may end up becoming a close-quarter fight. Alfred realizes that this is a battle with a monster. Roomba is shocked to see Alfred suddenly far behind him, asking, "Oh? Why are you all the way back there?" Alfred explains that it's scarier the closer he gets, and Roomba calls him a coward, but notices Alfred is sheathing his sword and wonders what's this. Roomba turns and makes a mad dash toward Alfred with a menacing grin, leading Alfred to realize in horror that Roomba is seriously intending on throwing him into this fight. Alfred, resigned to his fate, thinks, "Guess I have no choice." Alfred shouts to Roomba that he is going to blast it with some of his magic, and he doesn't want any collateral damage. Roomba is impressed by the sight of Alfred's rapidly gathering magic, shouting, "Ho! That's enormous!" The goblin is struck with a massive, concentrated beam of power. The magic attack leaves a large crater. Alfred walks over to the defeated monster, noting that the violet-colored blood means it is definitely not human. Alfred reflects on the duty of the feudal lord to protect the people in their fiefdom, and how hunting stuff like rabbits and boars for food and survival was supposed to be a clear-cut solution to the problem, or at least intended to be. The panel focuses on the monstrous remains of the goblin as its body decays. The force of Alfred's attack sends the goblin flying backward in a blur. Alfred looks down with a serious expression, pondering our duty. He thinks to himself that magic can also be pretty grotesque, and fighting is something that will always be difficult to understand. Roomba asks Alfred if he is being serious now, and Alfred affirms he is. Alfred looks satisfied, saying he is content with just using magic to enrich his everyday life. Alfred and Roomba walk away, with Alfred confirming that fighting, just like he thought, is not for him, no matter which world one may be from, and the value of life will always be difficult to understand. Bartolo standing next to a stern-looking Alfred, who is wearing an apron, suggesting a cooking theme. A grandfather clock stands in the room while a quiet tapping sound is heard. Alfred is in the kitchen with Bartolo, confidently dicing up meat, specifying $8.07 to $3 ratio of beef to pork, while Bartolo asks if Alfred is sure it'll come out all right, given how many times he chopped up the meat. Alfred confirms that what he's trying to make is a hamburger steak. Alfred, referring to Bartolo as his dear assistant, asks where the sautéed onions are, noting he has the ice bowl ready too. Alfred instructs Bartolo to keep the meat nice and cold in the ice bowl while mixing the ingredients, minced meat, onions, beaten eggs, and breadcrumbs, with their hands after seasoning it with salt and pepper, explaining that the ice bowl makes up for the heat from their hands that would normally melt the fat. Alfred announces he must pull out a legendary technique, because they need the hamburger steak to keep its shape as they cook it, causing Bartolo to gasp, asking about the legendary technique. Alfred firmly tosses the kneaded meat between his hands with a loud sound effect. He explains this motherly technique of tossing the kneaded meat between the hands 10 times releases the trapped air inside the patty, ensuring the hamburger steak won't disintegrate when cooked and makes the end result cleaner. Bartolo is suddenly lost in a romantic daydream, thinking that if he were to find himself a wife, he would want her to make this for him while wearing a cute apron, then snaps back to reality, reminding himself he can't daydream. The cooking reminds Alfred of his high school cooking class in his previous life, and he can still remember that incident vividly to this day. Alfred, still cooking, reminds Bartolo to indent the middle of the patty with his finger, asking if this is correct. Bartolo receives the next step. Flip the patty over once one side is brown, add a splash of water, and cover it with a lid to let it bake in the steam, confirming he got it. Alfred announces that the hamburger steak is finished and it's giving off a delicious aroma. Bartolo observes that the aroma is even reaching outside the kitchen. The maid, Mina, is seen peeking in, and another person identifies her as a hyena waiting for the right opportunity to scrounge for any leftover scraps. A comparison Alfred says he can understand if it means a beast trying to hunt for its next prey. Alfred tells Bartolo it's time to plate it up with the sauce they made earlier and garnish it with some vegetables, and Bartolo agrees it's time to go and eat. Alfred takes a bite, noting that it's pretty good and not too tough, feeling satisfied that the heat was able to sufficiently pass through the patty. Bartolo, with tears in his eyes, praises the dish, saying it's amazing and the meat is so tender, while Mina watches in the background. Alfred says it came out a success even though it was their first time making it, and now he wants to try to make even more things, wondering if it would be even tastier if they added in some cheese, while Alfred wonders how long Mina is just going to stand there and watch them eat. Mina is still intently watching as she wonders about the cheese and proposes that instead of onions, they could add in things like carrots or mushrooms next time, thinking it's bound to be delicious, and Bartolo agrees it's a nice idea. Bartolo asks Alfred what they should do with the remaining hamburger steak they made. Alfred suggests they give it to Mina, and Bartolo, saying he's going to relinquish his job as taste tester for the sake of their cooking practice, agrees. A relieved sound effect is heard as Bartolo prepares the gift. Bartolo gives Mina the hamburger steak, and a teary-eyed Mina asks, Alfred-sama, Bartolo-sen, can I really eat this? And thanks them so much, while Alfred confirms of course she can. Eleonora suddenly bursts into the kitchen, shouting about the delicious smell and asking if Al made something new again, immediately recognizing the hamburger steak, while Mina is in heaven over the smell, saying it brings her happiness. Alfred immediately regrets giving the extra patty to Mina, shouting, "Oh God no," and thinking the aroma reeled in one heck of a monster. Eleonora asks for some too, shouting, "Och, great elder sister, I present to thee a hamburger steak," in a mocking tone, causing Alfred to shout in shock. Eleonora, wearing Mina's clothes and apron, makes the same grand gesture, forcing a confused Mina to give up her extra patty to Eleonora, who asks if she can really eat this. Eleonora, accepting the patty, thinks it looks so good and says she is going to share it with Mom, while Bartolo apologizes to Mina, saying society is just cruel like that, and the inferior being must absolutely abide by their superiors, leading Mina to cry out that it's a cruel world. Mina, in a childlike display of sadness, kicks the floor as she leaves the kitchen. Alfred, feeling bad, apologizes to Mina. Alfred explains to Bartolo that he is still a little brother first, before he is a noble, confirming the importance of the situation, while Bartolo smiles, noting that Alfred had one intense personality switch. Bartolo comforts Mina, telling her, "Don't go making that kind of face," and promising he is going to make her another one, and Mina, her smile returning, says, "Why yes," and she'll be waiting. Bartolo thinks he senses some chemistry between these two, while Mina, smiling, says she'll forget about the incident regarding the sugar just for today. Alfred and a companion in a kitchen-like setting. The man notes that it is another hot day and that it is summer, so there's no way around it. Alfred comments that the sight of the wheat fields beginning to transform from a bright green color to a golden hue is a sight to behold, saying it's pretty exciting. A horse-drawn wagon is shown, as Alfred states that today is the day. Alfred thinks to himself that that traitor makes his return. Triela arrives and is greeted warmly by Alfred's companion, Bartolo, who says it's good to see him and it's been a while, noting he came at the right time. Alfred and Bartolo share a smug laugh, saying they've been thoroughly anticipating his arrival, while Triela says he's also glad to see both of them. Alfred thinks that Triela's perception level is as sharp as ever for a merchant, always being cautious of his surroundings, but notes that it is the people who fail to recognize their own faults who are the foolish ones. Alfred recalls the horrors of Chapter 11, when Trisan snitched to the ladies' camp about the sugar they had stored away, which resulted in Bartolo and Alfred experiencing bitter anguish for 1 week. A shot of the interior of the mansion's living area is shown. Triela explains that since his father went into retirement, it hasn't been too bad, and thanks to Reversi, he was even able to open up shop in the royal capital, though he was panicking when he inherited his old man's firm so suddenly. Triela's mother, Elena, mentions that the proceeds from selling Reversi games are transferred straight into the Slowlet family savings, and she wouldn't be surprised if it was a considerable amount, though she has no idea how much revenue is being made. Alfred thinks that everything is going according to plan, noting that Triela is the one who provided the villagers with animals like chickens and cows for breeding purposes, and is sure Trisan is also profiting a lot as well. Triela says he looks forward to continuing their partnership for many years to come, adding that he is only this successful because of Alfred's Reversi idea, and Alfred agrees that they should both do their best. Bartolo suddenly confronts Triela, saying the way he betrayed them was unacceptable and he must face the bitter anguish they had to endure, telling him he won't forgive him until he does. Triela politely excuses himself, saying he has yet to bathe because of the long trip, but would like to continue discussing their other business matters with them later, and Alfred offers him the use of their bath. Alfred notes that while finding lodging is simple in this world, finding baths are another story, explaining that hotels do not exist here, and Triela is delighted, saying the bath here is on another level compared to the high-end ones in the royal capital, and he will go and prepare the hot water. Triela agrees, and Alfred says he'll take him there, thinking that for a former Japanese person, the long trips people take in this world sound pretty relentless. Triela agrees that everything should be fine as long as no hardships occur during their journey, then recalls that Alfred asked him to look into something the last time they met, and Alfred immediately shouts in recognition, "Oh right, rice." Alfred grabs Triela and shouts at him to hold up and tell him everything he knows. Alfred, with a focused stare, asks Triela if he has some rice with him, which Triela confirms. Alfred, panicking and thinking of rice as the sole food of the Japanese people, asks in desperation how many tons of rice Triela brought, exclaiming that a small quantity will not be sufficient for his needs. Alfred explains that he has been searching for an ingredient that resembles rice in this world, and realizes that the average Japanese person consumes 60 kilograms of rice over the course of a year, which is only an amount considering his past life's consumption, and the same stats won't hold true here. Alfred calculates that he needs to cultivate his own rice paddy fields so he can have as much rice as he desires, realizing that a 1/10 hectare rice field, which is approximately half of a tennis court and yields 8 to 9 sacks of rice, can fulfill the dietary needs for 7 to 8 Japanese people for 1 year. Triela, looking bewildered, asks Alfred if he can still hear him and if he is doing okay. Alfred apologizes, saying he was deep in thought, and acknowledges that Triela's question was an unusual way to put it. Alfred shouts that 100 kilos is not enough rice, saying he was only able to procure about 100 kilos worth, but there's no way he can carry that much, demanding to know if Triela brought 1 ton. Triela and Alfred exchange sounds of alarm as Alfred shouts for his rice and commands Triela to calm down, while Alfred thinks that the small amount he has will barely even last him 2 years. Alfred looks desperate, repeatedly making pleading noises. Triela, in a hushed and nervous voice, tells Alfred he is so glad he met him, promising to prepare that bath for him and after he's out, get him a chilled ale, and Alfred thanks him very much. Alfred is elated, saying he couldn't care less if he's a traitor anymore because rice is all he needs to make all of humankind happy and rice can bring peace to the world, while Triela says he's glad he was able to meet his expectations and they should hurry. Alfred gives Triela a piece of a new product of sweet and delicious candy that should relieve some of his fatigue, asking him what it is. Triela is delighted and says, "Ah, thanks." Alfred thinks that thus, Tri-san was reborn from being a filthy traitor into being his comrade in arms, and wonders how he should explain this to Bartolo. Alfred's fears are confirmed when he sees Bartolo, who shouts that Triela is pathetic and he must forget about his revenge because Tri-san brought them some rice. Alfred, thinking of the 2 maids who suffered the most from that ordeal, crosses his arms and sighs. Mina approaches Alfred and politely asks, "Excuse me, Alfred-sama?" Mina explains that Triela had just made an inquiry about sweets and informed her that Alfred-sama had some sweets on his person. Alfred is shocked, shouting, "Tensei," but quickly covers it up with a nervous laugh, saying he gave Triela the last one and doesn't have any more, but Mina is intrigued, asking those. Mina gives a stern, judgmental look as Alfred frantically whispers that it was all a joke and a fib, and that he must report this matter to Eleonora-sama. Alfred, with a pounding heart, offers Mina the rest of the candy he had hidden on him. Mina is silent for a moment, and then asks Alfred-sama if he can please hop for her. Alfred nervously asks if she means hop like a bunny rabbit, and agrees to her request. Alfred jumps up and down like a bunny, causing his remaining hidden candy to fall out, while Mina asks if there are any more. Alfred presents the last of his hidden candies, saying, "Tada! These are the last of them," and apologizing. Mina smiles as she takes the candy, tossing one into her mouth. Alfred cries out that that was extortion. Alfred, stomping his foot, blames Tri-san for always saying too much and damns Mina, complaining that no one was there to witness the crime happening either. Alfred quickly changes the subject, asking Bartolo to try incorporating some incredibly spicy akala pods into a hamburger steak. Bartolo is outraged, thinking that just incorporating the akala pods won't suffice, and that Triela is sure to pay with this, while Alfred gasps, realizing that because of Tri-san, the new candies they produced have been discovered by Mina of all people. Bartolo is furious, asking Alfred, seriously, if the candy was found, while Alfred, dejected and saying, "Sorry Bartolo," regrets that it was his mistake for letting his guard down. Bartolo, fueled by rage, shouts to add in even more akala pods, and to spice it up 100-fold because that bastard will taste the epitome of malice and despair, and Alfred, agreeing, shouts for him to show no mercy. Eleonora suddenly bursts in, attracted by the smell, saying it's a hamburger steak and asking if she can have it, while Bartolo and Alfred are horrified, realizing that trouble is here. Eleonora explains she is a little hungry after her morning sword training and asks if she can have it, noting that Alfred did finish making one, and Alfred agrees. Eleonora asks Alfred if he made this, and Alfred confirms it, telling her to hurry up and eat it and get out of here already. Eleonora, oblivious to the spice trap, takes the hamburger steak and thanks Alfred, saying it's made with her utmost gratitude, so enjoy, while Bartolo and Alfred shout for her time to dig in. Eleonora takes a huge bite and immediately screams that it's spicy. Eleonora is reduced to a tearful mess, shouting, "WH!" Eleonora, still crying, tells Alfred that she now understands how he really feels about her. Alfred nervously tries to explain that the spice is because Nei-san is the most fiery person he knows, and that the Akala pods represent the spice of life, but Eleonora is not buying it. Alfred immediately regrets what he just said, thinking, just what the heck did I just say to her? Eleonora, looking menacingly calm, says that she now understands how Alfred feels about her, and tells Alfred to have a taste of those feelings himself. Alfred is dizzy with pain, exclaiming that the Akala is violating his mouth in all the wrong ways. Bartolo, laughing, tells Alfred, "But thanks for the rice by the way," as Alfred narrates that he fainted from the spice a little bit after, and that in the meantime, Trisen was instead served normal food instead of the revenge food. "Let's go on a picnic," shows Alfred training outside the mansion, which is 2 years after his transmigration. Alfred's father, Nord, announces that the training session is all for today. Alfred is sweaty and tired, stating that he trained from morning till noon and is so sore and tired, while Nord, holding his sword, happily says he feels refreshed. Alfred's older brother, Silvio, gently offers Alfred a drink, saying, "Oh, Sarah. Here you go." Alfred takes the drink, thinking that as expected from Sarah, she's quite the tactful person. Alfred observes that Sarah has been the one looking after him ever since he was a baby, and he has been unconsciously glancing at her black hair from time to time. He recalls talking to his mother about Sarah's black hair, noting it is a rare sight in this world. Alfred's mother, Elena, asks him what's wrong as he's been staring, thinking that since he is initially from Japan, he's used to seeing black hair, but it still feels nostalgic somehow. Elena asks directly if Alfred has feelings for Sarah, pointing out that he always stares so affectionately at Sarah. Alfred denies it, saying, "That's because I just love black hair." Elena notes that Alfred has already developed such a specific preference even though he's so young. Alfred mentally reminds himself that his mental age is supposed to be 33 after all, and decides he should not make Bartolo lunch today, thinking that they're seeing him in a different light now. He decides that since it's so nice out today, he will take advantage of the weather. Alfred leaves the mansion, deciding how about he go on a little picnic. He laughs to himself as he prepares food on a stove. Alfred shows off a newly made Hagama rice cooker that Logan-san made for him. He proudly declares that with this, he can cook the best rice, and notes that the rice is all nice and fluffy. Alfred recalls the steps for cooking rice mastery: lower the stove heat after the rice is finished, and then let it steam a bit. He then wraps the rice into a leaf and places it into his subspace storage, explaining that since the concept of time is non-existent in the subspace storage, he can enjoy these piping hot onigiri whenever he wants. Alfred thanks Logan-san, saying that thanks to this rice cooker, he is one step closer to reaching his goal of having an exceptional lifestyle. He decides he's got to go show Logan-san all of Rice's good points, and he's sure Logan-san will have a great affinity with rice dishes too, since he showed great enthusiasm over Tamagoyaki. Alfred, walking through the village, realizes he's got to search for some miso and despairs that there may not be any miso soup to go with it, wondering if soybeans even exist in this world. He is determined to find soybeans, claiming that if rice exists here, then soybeans have to be somewhere, and he must find them to make miso, soy sauce, edamame, and natto, declaring he'll search far and wide, no matter where it will lead him. Alfred is suddenly interrupted. He is surprised by a group of villagers who are cheering, "Eleonorazma. Good luck out there." As Alfred wonders what's going on over there and notes he was in the middle of constructing his happy Japanese cuisine plan. Eleonora is training with a man from the Vigilance Corps, as the villagers cheer for her not to hold anything back or lose out there. Alfred sighs that Nei-san is full of fighting spirit as usual, noting she's training with the Vigilance Corps today. He decides he has to make a run for it before she finds out he's there, citing the proverb, "The wise man does not expose himself needlessly to danger." Alfred quickly arrives at Logan-san's house. Logan shouts at Alfred to "shut up," because he is making too much noise, and Alfred insists he has food. Alfred offers Logan some food made from rice, explaining that he'll hear nothing if anyone heard him shout because no one lives in this neck of the woods except him. Logan is surprised that Alfred actually used the Hagama rice cooker he made him, and Alfred tells him that the food is steaming hot, so be careful. Logan says he'll eat this later then, and Alfred says he was thinking of going on a picnic after delivering the rice, since the weather today's pretty nice. Alfred is internally shocked at the thought of eating piping hot onigiri later, calling it an act of tomfoolery and inconceivable, and quickly tries to think of a good excuse so that he would eat it now. Alfred recovers and asks Logan-san if he wants to go on a picnic with him, but Logan immediately rejects the invitation, asking what gave Alfred the idea he'd want to go. Logan politely says, "Thanks," and "Goodbye," and tells Alfred he'll tell him what he thinks about them the next time he sees him. Alfred decides that Logan-san is a tsundere who will probably eventually say, "HMPF, I guess I'll just try one to see how it tastes." Alfred is right as Logan, after closing the door, pulls out an onigiri and says, "I guess I'll just try one to see how it tastes," which Alfred notices with a triumphant, "I knew it." Logan is so taken by the food that he immediately opens the door and shouts, "Wait right there." Logan asks Alfred, "What's wrong?" and if he is finished with them already, then asks if Syria's diner will be serving these anytime soon. Logan looks intense and demands that Alfred answer his question. Alfred, amused that Logan is not being honest with his feelings about how extremely tasty the onigiri were, notices there's a grain of rice on his cheek. Alfred tells Logan that Syria-san's diner may not be able to serve this dish because Alfred has only got a small quantity of rice back at the mansion, and Logan muses that he feels like they would go really well with the tamagoyaki. Alfred is impressed that the foodie Logan-san was able to immediately identify the affinity that rice and tamagoyaki have with each other. Logan apologizes, saying the onigiri was delicious by the way, and tells Alfred, "Goodbye," again, leaving Alfred to think that Logan is so easy to read. Alfred leaves Logan's place. He walks toward his chosen destination, happily shouting, "It's picnic time." Alfred finds a spot by a waterfall in the woods. The place is beautiful. Alfred looks around, realizing that going all by himself is a bit sad to be honest, noting this is still a picnic. He wonders if he should go back and ask Logan-san again if he would come with him now. Alfred realizes that he doesn't have any acquaintances or friends his own age, and that they're all old guys, concluding that he wants some friends his age and that this is actually pretty sad. Alfred decides that in that case, maybe he should ask Silvio Nii-san if he wants to come along, thinking that if he asks to go outside and read while they enjoy the beautiful scenery, Silvio would be all for it. Alfred is greeted by a group of friendly villagers, who call him Alfred-sama and ask where he is heading today, noting that mingling with the villagers like this sure is nice and he hopes he can do the same with friends his age too. Alfred, shocked, stops in his tracks as he hears a voice and realizes that voice, it can't be. His sister, Eleonora-sama, greets him, asking, "Is that you, El?" accompanied by two girls, whom he wonders about. One of the girls asks if he is the Alfred-sama she has been hearing so much about, confirming he must be Eleonora-sama's younger brother. Alfred introduces himself as Alfred, the Slow-let family's second son, thanking the girl for always looking after his elder sister on his behalf, and the girl, Emma, says the pleasure is all hers. Eleonora laughs, telling the other girl, Sheila, that Alfred is just messing with both of them, as the girls think Alfred's greeting was exceptional and he's such a polite and courteous young man. Alfred mentally pats himself on the back, knowing that a person's first impression happens within 10 seconds and with a greeting like that, his business sales will be through the roof, and he needs to butter up the kind Emma Wanisama more so he can be doted on. Alfred greets the other girl, Sheila-san, and says it's a pleasure to meet her. Eleonora tells Alfred to stop looking at Emma and Sheila, noting that she has a strange urge to punch him. Emma and Sheila ask Alfred what he is planning on doing today, and Alfred explains he was thinking of going into the mountains and planning to find a good spot with beautiful landscape and stop and eat lunch. Emma and Sheila both exclaim that that sounds like a marvelous idea, and Eleonora asks if she can tag along too, while the girls also ask if they may come along as well. Alfred recalls that he made himself some lunch and headed out for a picnic because the weather was nice, and that's how Eleonora Nei-san and her friends asked to come along as well, which he thought was a good idea. He accepts that letting the two beautiful young women he just met, Emma Wani-san and Sheila-san, come along is one thing, but is perplexed that Eleonora Nei-san wants to come along too. Eleonora questions if Alfred even brought any food since he's trekking through the mountains to have lunch, and Alfred says he doesn't mind her coming along because he has his subspace storage to store his food. Eleonora tells her friends that Alfred is willing to prepare lunch for the four of them, saying Bartolo's cooking is simply delicious. Alfred is inwardly shocked by Eleonora's refined tone and use of "my sincerest apologies" when speaking to her friends, noting her language is so abrasive when she's not with them. Eleonora tells Alfred to stop spacing out, and he covers up his thoughts by saying, "It's nothing," while Bartolo frets about cooking for 4 people and worrying that he doesn't have enough ingredients left or time to restock. Alfred thanks Bartolo for preparing the box lunch, and Eleonora says that the cool breeze feels pretty refreshing even though it's summer, feeling the wind brushing against her skin. The 4 of them finally set off for the picnic. As they walk, Emma expresses concern that the slopes are quite steep and asks Alfred-sama if he's alright, and he answers, "Yes, I am." Eleonora tells Emma to excuse her, explaining that Alfred has been undergoing sword practice for a while now, so a little slope like that won't bother him, frustrating Alfred, who knows his sister is interfering with his hopes to be pampered. Alfred is distracted when he recalls the feeling of Emma's hand, thinking it was so soft and ladylike. Emma and Sheila reveal that they have been participating in the Vigilance Corps' training regimen for the past 2 years, and Emma shows the calluses on her hand from gripping a wooden sword. Sheila exclaims that it's a wonderful sight to behold how Eleonora-sama is able to keep up with the rest of the Vigilance Corps and splendidly swings her blade, expressing their hope to one day become as strong as her. Eleonora proudly says that her strength is only natural, of course. Emma confesses that she can never seem to win every time she engages in a match against Eleonora-sama and Feudal Lord-sama because they are so strong. The girls continue climbing, with Eleonora telling Sheila to hang in there because they're almost there, while Alfred asks how many times Sheila has said that already, and Sheila groans that she's already starting to become quite famished and asks if they can just stop and eat lunch already because the food smells so good. They finally arrive, announcing, "We're here." They immediately decide to make haste and bring out the boxed lunches. From their vantage point, they can see Colliate in its entirety, and Emma points out the mansion Eleonora-sama lives in. Sheila, completely losing her composure, repeatedly shouts, "Lunch!" and "Hurry! Let's eat already please," while noting that the breeze feels so nice. They decide it's time to dig in. Sheila opens her boxed lunch, exclaiming that the food looks so inviting, and Emma agrees that the meal is, "That's Bartolo for you." Alfred looks at his own boxed lunch, noting that it contains a little too much tamagoyaki, realizing that Bartolo did mention they were low on ingredients. Alfred gives a thoughtful stare at his food. He quickly uses his magic, making a trade-off, replacing the tamagoyaki with some onigiri from his subspace storage. Eleonora asks Alfred about the white thing in her friend's boxed lunch, saying it's her first time seeing something like that, reminding him that he was the one that was helping Bartolo after all. Alfred explains that it's an onigiri that is flavored with a bit of salt, which they can eat with their hands and goes well with meat, and Sheila, with her mouth full, confirms that it is delicious. Emma notes that the onigiri is pretty good and has a glutinous texture, and that a subtle mellowness emerges the more one masticates. Sheila asks if the onigiri also goes well with fish, but then asks, "Is this a new recipe that Bartolo developed?" Alfred thinks to himself that it would be bothersome if people keep thinking it was him who comes up with these ideas, concluding that it's whatever. The girls relax on the mountain slope after eating lunch. Alfred, lying down, is startled by a stupid-sounding call from a bird flying nearby. Eleonora asks if Alfred doesn't know what that bird was, saying, "It gave off this weird call," to which he replies that he doesn't know. Eleonora explains that it's a funii bird that one sees on occasion when reaching high mountain altitudes. Alfred, musing that it's a weird bird, asks if there's something else special about it besides its call, and Eleonora explains that even though it's a bird, it can also run on land, but it tends to trip over itself quite often. Alfred, still using his polite tone with the girls, is asked by Eleonora how long he plans to keep using that refined tone and if he's always like this when he's not home. Eleonora, smiling enigmatically, says every girl has their secrets, causing Alfred to nervously say he'll ignore the latter part of what she just said for his sake. Emma comments that Eleonora-sama sure is fond of Alfred-sama, and Sheila agrees, saying, "Quite so." Eleonora, while ascending the mountain, would walk at a slow enough pace and frequently glance over to check if Alfred-sama was doing all right. Alfred is surprised when Eleonora calls out, "Emma, we can hear you," and is embarrassed that Emma had been talking about them while they were climbing. Alfred says that Eleonora-san has always been one to only scowl at him. He yells that he just don't get it. Eleonora explains that she just wanted to make sure that he wasn't slowing them down and that he must not be slowing them down. Alfred notes that compared to other times, Nasan's tone is as blunt and cold as usual, but he heard a gentle softness from it this time. The bath, the demon, and the revolving lantern, hints at the coming domestic chaos. The narration notes that the wheat harvesting season has just begun, and as a result, Kolayate village has become a hive, buzzing with activity. As the busy harvest continues, it has become a fun time where families gather and work together, and the smiling faces of the people from the fiefdom continue to beam, even though a percentage of the harvest would be paid to the Slowlet family as tax. In the village diner, a group of people are talking about the bountiful harvest, and Alfred's acquaintance, Syria, points out that everyone's pretty busy and that they also have to prepare for the harvest festival in 5 days' time. Alfred greets Carla-san, noting that the harvesting work is finally starting to slowly settle down, and Carla agrees that it's already that time of the year. Carla confirms that they're also having a Reversi tournament this year and asks Alfred if he'll be participating as well, and he answers, of course. Syria laughs, saying she's pretty grateful that this place has also gotten pretty busy, but points out that Alfred must have it pretty rough back at the mansion too. The maids in the Slowlet family kitchen are preparing food, and Bartolo is asked by the head maid how many hundred portions they needed to make, with her telling Bartolo to pick up the pace because they have their hands full and can't half-ass the cooking this year due to the visitors from outside the village. Alfred relaxes in his room, thinking that everyone sure has it rough out there. In Alfred's room, he's happily practicing fire magic while wearing 2 layers of pants, deciding it's best to just stay snug on such a chilly day. Eleonora bursts into his room, shouting, "Ale!" and demanding, it's time for sword practice. Alfred, clutching a pillow, tells Eleonora to at least knock, complaining that he's going to pass on practice because today's cold, but Eleonora chastises him, saying he'll never improve if he doesn't practice diligently. Eleonora asks about the preparations and arrangements for the harvest festival, suggesting that if the guests were already invited, there shouldn't be a problem, but then smiles and declares that even if things don't work out, they'll just have extra sword practice time all to themselves. Eleonora tells Alfred to wipe that irritated look off his face or she'll rearrange that face of yours for you. Alfred looks concerned, acknowledging that his looks are mediocre at best compared to his family, and wonders if rearranging his face would mean he'll become hot, as Eleonora tells him that Silvio already went on ahead without him and to make haste and finish changing his clothes. Alfred sarcastically wishes that his face was rearrangeable. Alfred steps outside and immediately shivers, saying it's so cold and wondering what his sister is dawdling around for when she bursts in, shouting "ill," and telling him to move around a bit to warm his body up. Alfred is shocked by Eleonora's outfit of a short-sleeve shirt and pants, thinking that she's like those tough school kids who wear short sleeves even in winter. He asks her if she isn't cold dressed like that, and she firmly says, no, asking him if he's cold. Eleonora demands that Alfred answer her question, and he replies that once he starts moving around, his body should start warming up, but asks Silvio, aren't you cold, Silvio Nii-san? And Eleonora asks what he means by Eleonora ne-san aside. Alfred's father, Nord, arrives and greets everyone, asking if they're all ready to begin, and then suggests that since it's a bit cold today, they should start off with a little run around the mansion's perimeter, and Eleonora and Silvio assent, making Alfred's father comment that it's rare to see Elle so lively. Silvio, jogging next to Alfred, asks about what he said earlier, persistent about his question. Eleonora immediately turns to Alfred, asking why they don't let their blades do the talking. Alfred says that Eleonora is right and calls her a genius, while Eleonora tells Silvio that if he wants to prove himself, he should have their blades do the talking. Nord directs them to move on to practice swings since their bodies should be warmed up by now, and the children agree. Alfred performs his practice swings, reflecting that he's only been training for 5 months and has started to find the sound of the sword slicing through the air quite nice. Silvio instructs Alfred to use the weight of his entire body as he swings and notes that his swings still lack the necessary arm strength. Alfred admires Silvio, noting his movements are so clear and precise, observing that Silvio is an earnest one who thinks carefully before he acts. He contrasts Silvio's thoughtfulness with Eleonora, who he believes just acts on impulse. Alfred is suddenly interrupted by the sound of something. He turns, surprised by a metallic sound, thinking that the wooden swords shouldn't be too sharp. Eleonora's fierce swing cuts through the air. Alfred is puzzled, asking, what did she just do? Alfred is shocked, realizing that Eleonora's single swing cut a leaf into 4 pieces. Alfred is stunned by the impossible feat, wondering if he'll end up like that too, and asks why there are 4 cuts on that one leaf when she only swung the sword once. Nord chastises Eleonora, saying that technique is not something she should be playing around with, reminding her that they're supposed to be in the middle of their sword swinging drills, and Eleonora says, I'm sorry. Nord tells Alfred to stay focused, and Alfred notes how incredible it is that the demon, Eleonora, is acting meek for once, thinking the path of a warrior can tame even a demon. Nord announces that next they will have a sparring match, and Silvio tells Al to have a good match. Silvio's words remind Alfred of Eleonora's earlier challenge, and he tells Silvio he shouldn't have opened his mouth, saying he will return those words right back at him. Silvio smiles, telling Al that since this is just a sparring match, there's no reason for him to make such an evil face, and Alfred, smirking, tells Silvio to prepare himself anyways. Alfred and Silvio engage in a sparring match. Silvio praises Alfred's defenses as pretty good, saying, "You too, Ison." Alfred says he'll use that as a reference for later, noting that Silvio's parry is a necessary skill to have to fight against Eleonora Nasan. Alfred threatens to quit this match right here, right now if Silvio doesn't fight seriously, and Silvio, laughing nervously, says he'll ask Dad to come over and show Alfred a better example. Alfred is curious about the metallic sound he heard earlier, asking, "Ting?" Alfred realizes that Eleonora and Silvio are infusing some of their magic power into their wooden swords, thinking that the metallic sound is not a sound a wooden sword should make. Alfred remembers that Nord taught him that one's magic increases after the user fully recovers from exhausting their magic supply, but he doubts Eleonora has been keeping up with it, though he wonders if perhaps she's been doing it when he's not noticing. Eleonora is now sparring with Nord, and Alfred observes that their blades are clad in magic power, noting that his father can use wind magic, but he's never seen him use it before, and thinks that's one match he doesn't want to get mixed up in. Nord, satisfied with the training, thanks them for the lesson, and Alfred is disappointed that he wasn't able to exact his revenge on Silvio. Alfred says it's time to heat up the bath using his magic, noting that it's a whole lot quicker than the magic tool they used before he was born. Alfred is furious that Eleonora used her fire magic in the bath, causing the ice he put in to disintegrate, and thinks he has zero trust in Nasan's fire magic prowess. Alfred recalls a time when he caught a cold after an incident where he tried to replace the scorching water from Eleonora's excessive use of fire magic with bone-chilling water he made for her bath for revenge, thinking that was not a pleasant experience. Alfred sees Silvio Nissen coming, and is excited for the opportunity. Silvio smiles and tells Alfred that he just prepared a bath and he can go in first if he'd like, and that Silvio will enter once he grabs a change of clothes. Alfred gleefully welcomes Silvio and Isan to the cold depths of the Arctic Ocean. Alfred laughs, explaining that the cold vapors from the huge block of ice he dissolved using fire magic would look exactly like hot steam, so Silvio would have no clue. Alfred looks forward to seeing Silvio's reaction when he realizes the bath is cold. Eleonora enters the room, and Alfred is shocked, recognizing her voice as Eleonora asks, "Why?" "So why is it cold?" Believing that since steam was coming from the water, she thought it was hot, and shouts that this is definitely Al's doing. Eleonora is in a state of fury, which Alfred thinks makes her look like a demon. Alfred, panicking and shouting, "The death glare," slams the door shut, thinking, just calm the heck down. Alfred, terrified, tries to close the door as calmly as possible because if he can close the door, then it's his win, wishing he could just get one more second. Eleonora, looking menacingly calm with her face in the crack of the door, says, "So if I can wring your neck, then it's my win, right?" Introduction of a new selection of clothing that came straight from the royal capital, and the narrator has some confidence in this selection. Alfred and his mother, Elena, observe the extensive selection of clothes, with Alfred noting that they invited the Triela firm over so they could have a little shopping day. Elena explains that thanks to the favorable sales Reversi has brought her, she was able to form all sorts of different connections, and notes that the inventory is quite extensive today. Eleonora asks why they are not having practice today, and Alfred's brother, Silvio Nisan, explains they invited the Triela firm over so Eleonora could get some new clothes, even though Alfred proposed the idea. Alfred reflects that the actual reason for the shopping day was to avoid having to be Eleonora's partner in the hellish one-on-one sparring sessions, and tells his mother that she and Silvio have to start picking out their own clothes because he should not be the one to do that for them. Eleonora, inspecting a box of items, shows more interest in weaponry than she does in clothes, noting that her girl power is almost non-existent. Alfred is impressed, thinking that the luxury clothes feel a whole lot different compared to the items they get in the village, and notes the materials are a bit more high-class because the clothes are intended to be worn by nobles. Silvio directs Alfred-sama to the men's clothing section, which is located nearby. Alfred inspects the clothing, noticing that all the clothes have the same neck thingy and there's a recent trend of adding decorations or embroidery along the clothes' neckline, and he requests some clothes that are easy to move in. Eleonora immediately finds a coat and mantle that look really cool but tells Alfred that it won't look good on him. Alfred asks if his looks would improve once he grows older and starts looking like Dad, but Eleonora still rejects the idea. Alfred complains that his mother and sister are cruel because they told him to pick his own clothes, and he wants some handsomely fitting clothes like Silvio Nissan. Elena explains that the reason some items they cannot wear are included in the current clothing inventory is not because they won't suit Alfred or are too expensive, but because there are certain clothes that one can only wear once one reaches a certain peerage rank. Alfred is shocked, realizing that this was a way to help him learn about different clothing and garments. Elena confirms this was a way to educate Alfred-sama more about different clothing and garments, which she added as a request from Elena-sama, his mother. Alfred decides he'll try something plain that is also comfortable, such as the items laid out on the table. Elena tells Alfred that the plain-looking cloth looks fine, but is a bit too plain-looking, though Alfred is confused, thinking it will suit him. Elena looks him up and down, concluding that pairing this overly plain color with him would definitely suit him without a doubt, leaving Alfred to wonder about the mocking atmosphere he feels. Eleonora sighs, calling the whole thing a pain, and instructs Alfred to go on and change into it behind the curtain. Eleonora, looking through a drawer of trinkets, asks why a knife like this is included among the ornaments, wondering if a sharp blade wouldn't be better to use as adornment than this toy. Alfred agrees with Eleonora, saying some nobles are just pretentious people by nature and asking Eleonora to give him a break. Elena confronts Eleonora, noting that all she does is look at swords, and that she should learn to act a bit more femininely. Alfred emerges from behind the curtain, looking at his reflection and thinking the clothes are not bad because they just slip it on and he's done. Alfred turns around, saying the plain color is nice too, and the clothes are easy to move in and really comfortable, though he wonders if he's not cute if a guy's doing this. Alfred announces he's done changing. Eleonora and Elena are visibly shocked, while Silvio's eyes widen. Elena instructs Alfred to pose for them to fully check the outfit, asking him to turn around, lift his sleeve, and bend his knees, concluding that the plain-looking color suits him and that no normal person can pull off a look like that. After a strenuous time, Alfred collapses, thinking this is how a husband feels after going on a shopping spree with his wife, while Elena, worried Eleonora will have trouble deciding on her own, wonders what she should do about Eleonora. Elena finds Eleonora in the men's section of the clothes rack, asking her if she is planning to cross-dress, but Eleonora denies it. Elena tells a reluctant Eleonora that even if she thinks the men's clothing may suit her, she must at the very least pick some women's clothing. Alfred and Elena sort through the clothes while Eleonora changes, thinking it can't be helped when it comes to Eleonora, and decide to pick out a few things for her to try on. Alfred compliments his mother, saying it's as expected of her to be able to discern her children's tastes with just a glance. Alfred, looking at the huge pile of clothes Eleonora has to try on, feels bad for her, wishing she would take a little bit more interest in other things aside from swordplay. Eleonora emerges, wearing an elegant blouse and slacks, and Elena exclaims that she looks good on her, thinking she looks absolutely dazzling. Alfred's smile twitches as he sees Eleonora holding her sword, asking if she is planning to use this outfit for training. Eleonora asks if they are telling her to try all of this on, saying it'll be the middle of the afternoon by the time they're finished, but Elena tells her to stop admiring that sword and move on to the next outfit. Alfred immediately starts helping his mother sort more clothes, wondering if forcing Nay-san to try on more clothes means they can lower the time they spend on morning sword practice. Eleonora is distraught, asking, "Why are you giving her more?" But Elena says Alfred is right and she thinks this one will look great on Nay-san. Eleonora complains that they probably won't even buy half of this selection anyways, but Elena counters that if she doesn't pick up the pace, she might not make it to sword practice. Elena promises Eleonora that if she tries on that dress, an elegant, sleeveless gown, she won't force her to try on the rest. Alfred wonders if a dress will really look good on Nay-san, as Eleonora is in agony, saying ugh, but Elena insists of course it will. Elena uses the sword practice thread again, saying that if Eleonora were to try on this many clothes, she'll have to miss out on her beloved sword training, and Alfred sighs that if this is to draw out his beloved elder sister's inner charm, then it can't be helped. Eleonora gives in, saying, "Fine. I'll try on the dumb dress," and Elena immediately asks Sarah and Triela to come and provide information about the dress. Triela and Alfred are finally allowed to enter the changing area 30 minutes later. Eleonora emerges in the dress and is complimented by everyone, with Triela calling it an astonishing transformation and a beautiful sight, though Eleonora mentions it's hard to move in this. Elena proudly says the next dress shall be the last one, which relieves Eleonora, who thought her mother would continue forcing her to try on different clothes. Triela is confused, asking what's wrong? Are you doing all right? Alfred, with a sly look, is relieved that they were actually able to limit practice time today and notes that trying on that dress took quite a considerable amount of time. Eleonora is shown in the white, elegant dress, looking like a proper noble lady. Eleonora is confused when she looks at herself in the mirror, saying it's me, and asking, who are you? Eleonora demands if she can take this off now, and Elena and the girls try to calm her down, but she runs off and shouts that this is definitely an imposter and not her, yelling, of course not. When asked if she wants to try on new training outfits, the maid, Sarah, helps her change her elaborate hairstyle, and Eleonora says she liked her regular hairstyle better anyways, and Alfred laughs nervously as the elegant dress is quickly removed. Eleonora changes back into her normal everyday training outfit, saying she knew it, and her usual attire is simply the best, though the girls concede she was so cute too. Eleonora asks Alfred to come on and let's go do some sword practice, but after they eat lunch, of course. Alfred looks at the enthusiastic Eleonora, thinking that her elegant figure may have been nice, but honestly, this lively and energetic Naysan isn't bad either. Alfred suddenly shouts in shock. He is illuminated by a small light and exclaims, "Oh!" He shields his face, muttering, "This is..." The chapter title, Sweet Potato Crock, is presented, as the narrative explains the Slow-Let family was able to get some sweet potatoes, but Alfred's homemade baked sweet potatoes came out tasting more different than expected. A close-up shot shows a pile of sweet potatoes. Alfred narrates that he was able to acquire some sweet potatoes unexpectedly yesterday, when his dad and Silvio and Iisan were out patrolling the village, and he thinks they're looking pretty good. A group of villagers gather around feudal Lord Sama, Nord, and Silvio, and a woman tells them to please do not overexert yourselves while Alfred's mother, Elena, hopes that nothing unusual has happened now that everyone is busy getting ready for the harvest festival. A woman tells Nord to please take some of the foliage and crops they harvested if he likes, noting they were able to harvest a lot this year. Elena explains that the villagers are willingly dividing up the produce to give to us as a way of showing that they're currently doing well, living their everyday lifestyle. Silvio is happy, saying that it also shows that the Slow-Let household is loved by the people. Nord and Silvio continue to receive produce from the smiling villagers at different locations. Alfred looks at the sweet potatoes in a basket, noting that it's currently fall and the family pantry is filled to the brim. He thinks that since he has some sweet potatoes, it's obvious that he must bake them, deciding that if he bakes it with any seasonings whatsoever, he won't be able to appreciate the sweet potatoes' natural flavor. Alfred fantasizes about using a microwave for cooking, immediately regretting that they do not exist in this world, and recalls how it was difficult to lower the flame's strength when he used some fallen leaves to make a fire one time. He decides to try something new this time, since he had previously just used stones to form his baking stove. Alfred carries a barrel, then spots a vase and decides this vase looks just right. He inspects the vase, noting that nothing's inside and it's not too dirty, so it'll be fine after he gives it a light wash. Alfred, wearing his new autumn clothing, thinks it would be easy if he were to use strength fortification magic to move the vase, but wonders how he should move it into the garden. He decides he can use this time to squeeze in some practice by using teleport. Alfred uses his teleport magic, successfully moving the vase to the spot he wanted in the garden, thinking he should teleport it slowly and steadily so someone might not see him. Alfred is now inside, standing by the vase, saying he'll be teleporting with his vase pal past Dad's office next. He successfully moves the vase to a new spot, checking to see if anyone is around. He smiles triumphantly, thinking he'll finally teleport the vase past the last hurdle, but is suddenly shocked when he hears, "Al? What are you doing over there?" He realizes the voice belongs to Eleonora Nason. Alfred looks around wildly, thinking it's odd because he doesn't see her anywhere, wondering just where the heck she saw him from and if he's just hallucinating. Eleonora's voice is heard again, coming from Dad's office, saying, "Al's just outside the window." And someone asks, "What's wrong, Eleonora Nason?" Eleonora tells the person that Alfred should be visible, thinking, "Can't you tell from the sounds of his footsteps and presence?" Alfred is shocked, asking, "What the hell is she talking about?" Eleonora's companion confirms, "Oh, he is outside. See? Didn't I tell you so?" And Alfred throws up his hands in surrender, thinking, "Don't give me that garbage," and cursing her animalistic intuition. Eleonora comes outside and asks what he is doing in a place like this, and Alfred explains he just came out here to look in the shed because he was thinking that maybe he'd find something cool or something. Alfred plots to mix in some truth to make up a good half-lie, half-truth answer in order to not have any hindrances while he bakes his sweet potatoes, thinking that Reincarnation rarely sees through his lies. Alfred is relieved that Eleonora wasn't able to see through his little fib, but she immediately tells him that if he has that much free time, he should come help them out with some of the paperwork. Alfred groans, sighing that she's right, and notes it's rare seeing Nasan doing some paperwork, wondering if mom and dad are forcing her to do it, and concludes there's no use in him helping since she's arithmetically challenged. Eleonora rejects Silvio's suggestion to help with the numbers, finding it so boring, and complains that he'll probably not have enough time to do some sword training with dad though, while Silvio tells Eleonora that it's no good if she's not the one doing the work. Eleonora and Silvio decide to go stare at some more numbers since Eleonora really values sword training that much. Alfred shouts encouragement for Silvio and Isan to please do his best with his work. Alfred muses that people who are so diligent and do their best at work sure are wonderful. After the washing is complete, Alfred begins the assembly, thinking it's time to insert into the vase some charcoal and the metal fixtures so he can hang up the sweet potatoes. He explains that to cook in a ceramic crock pot, you need to add a briquette to the bottom, but since he doesn't have any of those, he'll just have to make do with a regular charcoal brazier. Alfred, satisfied, announces that the ceramic crock pot preparations are completed. He inserts the charcoal brazier and the little basket he made with metal fixtures to hold the sweet potatoes. Alfred sets the charcoal on fire with some fire magic. He then closes up the vase with a wooden board, which should do fine as a lid, saying, "Now we just sit here and wait for the crock-baked sweet potato." He explains the cooking method. Charcoal fires generate strong far-infrared rays, FIR, and since the charcoal brazier is made of diatomite, it produces a lot of these rays, which cook the food evenly and seal all the umami flavor inside. He estimates it will take just another 30 to 40 minutes before they're done, and decides he'll go practice some magic in the meantime. He practices his magic, conjuring a swirling ball of fire magic. He practices magic control and maintenance with water-like bubbles, finding the simple stuff to be really fun. Alfred is excited by his power, thinking that with magic, he can do anything and that the more he practices, the more results he sees, realizing that magic is only limited by one's own imagination. He questions if his intense love for magic isn't the same attitude Reincarnation has for her swordplay, thinking this is somewhat. He emphatically denies the comparison, saying they can't be the same because magic and swordplay are two completely different things, listing all the things he can do with magic that he can't do with swordplay, like drinking water, igniting a fire, attracting food, or teleporting. The sound of the bell's chime breaks his thoughts, and Alfred realizes that about 40 minutes have passed according to his physiological clock. He notes that the people of Culinary village are used to living their days without clocks and watches since time is told by a bell's chime, but sighs that people still complain about the time lag. Alfred rushes to the crock, asking, "How did it go?" He is delighted by the result, as a sweet aroma wafts up and he sees the trickling juices that resemble nectar, noticing that there isn't a sign of any burnt ones in sight. Alfred looks at the beautifully baked sweet potato, noting that the sweetness must have condensed quite a bit. He takes a large, steaming bite, exclaiming hot. He uses Tada, equip, to quickly manifest gloves. He takes another bite, thinking that was the last time he's making that mistake of touching it with his bare hands. He enjoys the sweet potato, exclaiming, "Nice. It's softer than I thought." He continues to eat. Alfred describes the sweet potato as soft and mellow, not crumbling apart, and that the skin isn't burnt or hard either, noting that the sweetness is different from the sweetness sugar provides and is the natural flavor of the sweet potato. He exclaims, "FW. Crock baking it was the right idea," and is full. Alfred reflects that the sweet potatoes he's had up to this point have not been that tender and soft, and although he wasn't one for eating the sweet potato skins, he wouldn't mind it one bit right now. Alfred is shocked to see Elena and Eleonora, with Elena asking, "What are you doing?" And Alfred shouts, "She's HE." Elena asks why Alfred brought a vase all the way out here, and Alfred is stunned, wondering if she's finished with all the office work already, as the girls note the vase is warm. Elena, horrified, recognizes the vase, shouting, "Quare? That's the vase Viscount Ulina gave me." Alfred confesses that he just used that thing to crock roast some sweet potatoes, wondering why such an important item was stored away in the shed. Elena collapses in panic, realizing the vase was a gift they got from another noble, a viscount, no less, showing the noble class system chart, and she wonders if they're seriously going to be okay after this. Eleonora calmly picks up the vase, saying she thought she smelled something nice and asks if he was baking sweet potatoes, while Silvio notes the use of the vase is interesting. Eleanor and Silvio take a bite of the sweet potato, and Eleanor exclaims that this baked sweet potato is incredibly sweet, and Silvio notes that the flesh is tender too. Nord walks up and asks, "Can Dad have one too?" And Alfred realizes that his dad has also taken an interest in the sweet potatoes. Nord tells Alfred, all right, and to not take anything out from the shed without his permission from now on, which Alfred agrees to. Alfred is surprised he wasn't given a very long lecture for his wrongdoings and wonders if it was because everyone calmed down from eating the baked sweet potatoes. A group of people in the kitchen are frantically chopping vegetables, and one person loudly asks if the vegetables are ready yet, while another says, "I have them right here," and is told, "Good, chop them up for me." The maids are struggling with plates, with one asking to use a certain dish because they don't have enough plates, and the other maid firmly rejects the suggestion, saying that dish is not something used to serve to guests. Alfred observes the chaos, thinking, everybody looks like they're having a tough time. The chapter opens with the title Harvest Festival Part 1, marking the start of the Harvest Festival. The narrator explains that the Harvest Festival is the one time the villagers all look forward to so they can sit back and relax, and the once-a-year Harvest Festival consists of celebratory activities. The celebration includes eating, drinking, and dancing in order to celebrate this year's abundant harvest, and for 3 days everyone is out having fun and not worrying about work. The festival is also a time to pray that next year's harvest will be more abundant, noting that if a bad harvest occurs, the festival becomes a small, "It's rare that something like this happens and we hope this doesn't happen again next year," festival. Alfred runs into the wheat field guy, Roland, who notes that the harvest festival is becoming awfully extravagant, and Alfred credits it to the abundant harvest this year on top of the proceeds he gained from inventing Reversi and other things. Bartolo, looking overworked, sighs that he was tasked to make the food for the festival after all, and laments that no matter how much he makes, it doesn't seem like it's enough, as Alfred notes he's looking busy. Bartolo mentions that a bunch of noble guests may be coming as well this year, including a count and a viscount whose names he doesn't remember. Alfred immediately freaks out, shouting, "Each," and exclaiming that he recognizes the title of viscount, thinking, "That's the vase Viscount what's his face gave me." Alfred comforts himself by recalling that his dad said that the vase wasn't very valuable, so he should be fine, but then wonders if it's rude to say that about a gift you received from someone. He decides he should head on over there already because today's the day of the Reversi tournament. Alfred walks through the fields, pondering, "What's this?" He observes the vast, recently harvested field. Alfred notes the empty field and realizes that he could have sworn the entire area was filled with waist-high wheat just the other day. He smiles, thinking to himself that it really has been a bountiful harvest. Alfred reflects that back in his past life, while living in the city, he was never able to embrace and appreciate the beauty of the seasons changing due to how busy he was. He concludes that he thinks. Alfred smiles, saying he's really glad that he was reincarnated to this world and to this village, agreeing with the voice in his head telling him to do it. He arrives at the Coliate village gates. The village square is bustling with activity and festive banners. Alfred is surprised, realizing he didn't know the village had this many people. He notes that there are some villagers he hasn't seen before, some travelers and peddlers. Alfred feels energized, noting that it's pretty refreshing seeing the village this lively and sensing a feeling of unity in the air. Alfred approaches Syria's diner, the location of the Reversi tournament. Alfred is shocked to see the massive crowd gathered outside and inside the diner. Roland greets Alfred, noting, "H, look who's here." But Alfred thinks he still doesn't think the diner would house this many people even with the addition of another building. Alfred, squeezed in the crowd, sighs, and Roland confirms that about 20 more people are still coming. The friendly man suggests that if push comes to shove, they can just have them play outside. Alfred enters the diner and is greeted by Syria-san, who welcomes Alfred-sama. Alfred tells Syria that if he can reduce the number of these filthy guys, then it will be a huge help, and asks if it's alright if he puts some chairs and tables outside her shop, and she agrees and tells him she's counting on him. Alfred is immediately confronted by Roland and the friendly man, who ask, "Hy, who are you calling filthy?" Alfred sighs and says, "I guess I'll help out too," preparing his magic. The tables and chairs are immediately finished. Roland is impressed by the sight, noting that magic sure makes this easy and admitting he can't use magic of this caliber. The cheerful man, Wester, says it's laughable to compare yourself to someone like Alfred-sama, revealing that his fire attribute magic can only light up the fire with $3 times a day at best. Wester then asks Roland how much he can do with his water attribute magic, and Roland proudly states he can produce enough water to fill up one bucket. Wester calls Roland's magic lame, and Roland fires back, asking what Wester would do if there is a huge fire, as Wester's little puddle won't be able to do a single thing to stop Roland's stupid flames from burning down his own house. The crowd of spectators start betting on the ongoing magical argument, with some betting on Roland and others on Wester, making Alfred realize the loud argument is scaring the ladies. The argument quickly devolves into a wrestling match on the floor, and Alfred's companions are excited, shouting that Roland and Wester are getting frisky with each other and that Roland was more of a dominant top while Wester was the submissive bottom. The maids are also watching the wrestling match, with one commenting that Wester just made a sudden reversal and now he's the top. Serious-Anne firmly tells them all to shut the hell up and to settle things through Reversi if they want to quarrel. The two combatants immediately stop fighting and apologize, confirming that Syria is just what they'd expect from everyone's mom. Roland immediately takes up the challenge and asks Wester to settle things through a game of Reversi. The actual tournament starts later in the morning, and Roland and Wester would lose in the very first round of the tournament. Alfred easily passed through to the next round as the proclaimed inventor of Reversi. The tournament continues, and the second round starts a little past noon, with the food stalls already starting to sell lunch. Alfred is seen watching the matches and hopes Carla-san can advance far enough so they can have a rematch. The spectators are getting pretty pumped up about the matches, with one person predicting that if a player puts his stone over there, won't he be able to make a huge comeback. Roland, defeated, laments that if it was anyone else, he would have won, and Wester, also defeated, says Roland was up against a guy with slit eyes and asks if Roland didn't also lose in the first round. Wester and Roland are seen standing next to two newcomers whom they are getting along with pretty well, noting that their facial features are different from the people around here, suggesting they might be foreigners. Roland asks Wester who he lost to, while Wester points out the guy over there who's eating all that Tamagotchi. Roland asks if the guy is any good, and Wester admits he didn't really get that feeling when he was facing him, suggesting Roland is too weak to even judge his own opponent's strength. Roland insists he didn't go all out and curses them for being so annoying. Silvio enters the diner and looks at the two mysterious newcomers, thinking to himself that he doesn't recall seeing people like them in the village and that he must be cautious around them. Silvio, noticing Alfred's presence, is subtly alerted to the two strange men with slit eyes, realizing that calling them villagers makes him feel uncomfortable. Herman-san calls out to Alfred-sama to announce that his next opponent for the second round is that person over there eating the Tamagotchi. Silvio tells Alfred and his opponent to please begin once they have finished making their preparations. The opponent shouts at the nearest waitress, calling her Missy, and demanding, "Give me another order of this." The waitress asks, "Just how much do you plan to eat?" and firmly reminds the opponent that he better have the money to pay for all of this. Alfred, looking closely at the man, wonders if he is an adventurer like Roomba, noting that he does look strong enough and suspicious enough to be one, especially since he has some gold coins mixed in there too. The waitress tells the opponent that if he asks for any more, there won't be enough for the rest of the other guests, forcing him to agree that he has to be satisfied with what he's already eaten. Silvio approaches Alfred's opponent, calling him, "Hey, manager." Silvio greets Alfred's opponent and confirms that Alfred is the one who will be facing him. The opponent introduces himself as Melner, and Alfred introduces himself, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. Melner smiles and says, "Now then, the second round of the Reversi tournament commences deep within the festivities of the Kolaiate Village Harvest Festival. The featured match is Alfred Slowlet, the feudal lord's second son, vs. His opponent is Melner, the enigmatic man. The result of the match is an overwhelming victory for Alfred, who then advances to the third round. Alfred observes that as they continued playing, it became clear that the originator's true strength is different compared to the others, concluding that Melner isn't all that good. Alfred asks Melner if he's not from around here, and Melner admits Alfred is right. Melner explains that Reversi made it to the place where he lives just recently. Melner, despite losing, demands a plate of Tamagotchi, but the waitress refuses to serve him since he still wants to eat, suggesting he order something else, like the spaghetti. Alfred mentally notes that Melner seems pretty relaxed, thinking normally one would get frustrated or annoyed if they lost to some kid, concluding it will probably take more than that to get under his skin. A man with slit eyes, Yulina, appears, and Alfred mentally thinks that he and Roomba would make a good combo. Yulina interrupts, complimenting Alfred's strategy in the previous match as absolutely magnificent, and says he will surely take reference from that brilliant spectacle. Ulina introduces himself and apologizes for the late introductions, and expresses his hope that they will have a good match if they ever face each other as opponents. Ulina orders a fruit water from the young lady, who quickly complies. Alfred feels like he has heard the names Melner and Ulina before, wondering if it's just his imagination. Alfred steadily wins all his matches after that and made it to the tournament's final. Alfred realizes his opponent for the final is Ulina, the slit-eyed man who defeated Carla-san after observing his match, describing him as the calculative type of person who thinks 2 or 3 steps ahead of his opponent. Alfred observes Ulina, thinking he will be one troublesome opponent, noting that even Alfred can't beat Silvio Nissan in shogi or reversi. Alfred tries to regain his focus, acknowledging he has to focus on the final. The crowd is divided, debating who is going to win, with some thinking it's obviously going to be Alfred-sama. The crowd continues to argue that of course he is going to be good at what he made since Reversi is something that Alfred-sama designed himself, noting that he did win against Carla pretty easily. Alfred's friend, the loud man from before, shouts at the people to stop bringing up the fact that he lost his match, but then comments that since Ulina guy was able to also easily win against Carla, this is going to be a good match indeed. The betting starts, with 2 people betting 5 bandit coins on Alfred-sama, though Alfred thinks they would both get much angrier than Carla if they were put in her shoes. Another spectator puts 2 bronze coins on Ulina and one puts 1 bronze coin on Alfred-sama, and Alfred reminds them that it's fine to place bets and all, but don't get mad when one or the other loses. The final match begins. Ulina asks if it's alright with Alfred if he chooses black, and Alfred agrees to be white. Alfred looks at the opening moves, observing that Ulina does not seem to be the type to set up simple traps to misguide the opponent, wondering how he should go about this. Alfred decides he has to hold the reins and make his moves hard to predict. He concludes that this is going to be a battle of mind games. Alfred and Ulina place their pieces. Alfred observes the board, finding the match to be pretty plain, to be honest, even though this is the long-awaited final. The spectators comment that it's not a good idea to greedily reverse the opponent's stones at every chance you get, arguing that this lack of strategy is why he's such an idiot. Alfred and Ulina continue to play, silently noting that they're both not giving in. Alfred mentally explains his strategy. Although the final winner is determined by who has the most pieces in the end, he is strategically laying out his pieces for the future. Ulina smiles, thinking to himself that this is Alfred's plan of attack. Alfred reveals his plan X, forcing Ulina to only take the squares directly diagonal from the corners, thereby severely limiting the squares he can place his pieces on. Alfred explains that by forcing Ulina into the X positions, it inadvertently makes the corner squares his, meaning that after the mid-game, these areas become much more difficult to overturn. The audience is confused, asking if something amazing just happened. Melner is impressed, noting that the most important spots have all been seized. Carla, trying to educate the crowd, explains that Alfred-sama was able to lead Ulina-san right into his trap, making it so no matter where Ulina-san places his piece, Alfred-sama can then take either corner or side squares. Carla, frustrated, tells Wester that he didn't realize it until she just told him either, demanding to know why he is being so stubborn and telling them both to use their heads to think a little every now and then. Wester tells Carla that her observation is right and that Roland and Wester lost in the first round because they lacked basic strategy, but quietly tells the man that from first appearances alone, these 3, Roland, Wester, and Carlson, may look like an odd grouping, but in actuality, their personalities balance each other out. Ulina is shown looking pained, thinking, how agonizing. Ulina resigns, saying he cannot seem to visualize a way for him to win. The match ends with a final score of 51 points to 13 points, and the crowd shouts, "It's over." The crowd cheers as the man announces, "It's White's win," meaning today's Reversi tournament winner is none other than Alfred-sama. Alfred thanks Ulina for the match, commenting he thought he had him on the ropes for a second. Alfred mentally notes that Ulina's strategic thinking was a cut above the rest of the people present today and that the positions he placed his pieces in were meticulously thought out. Ulina smiles and thanks Alfred for the match, thinking that Ulina lacked the experience but with more practice, he may just become as good as Silvio Nii-san. Alfred tells Ulina that when he has the spare time, he'll see if he can arrange a match between the two of them. Alfred is excited, thinking that with this he can get more booze and that they should go have a feast. Melner, still hungry, shouts to Syria-san to get them some ale, tamagoyaki, and some grilled meat, specifically telling her to make the tamagoyaki without the sugar. Roland, the cheerful man, invites Melner to partake with them as well, and Melner, surprised by the kind offer, accepts. Yelena asks if it's alright if he partakes with the both of them as well, and Melner invites him to have a seat. The young waitress, not realizing Alfred is an adult internally, tells Melner and Yelena that they mustn't order ale for a child, but Melner insists, ordering 3 Alash. Alfred accepts the fruit water and orders some spaghetti, noting that this is the village where spaghetti originated from after all. Yelena is impressed, saying he'll order that as well since spaghetti was something Alfred-sama thought up. The 3 men raise their glasses and shout, "Cheers!" to Alfred-sama's tournament victory. Melner laughs that it's like Alfred is drinking ale. Melner attempts to get Alfred to try his ale, but Alfred refuses, reminding him that it's just fruit water. Melner is surprised that Alfred, at 6 years old, is already this composed. Melner, feeling sorry for Alfred's strict upbringing, pats his back, noting that Alfred had it rough. Alfred is internally frustrated, thinking that the way they are treating him is not making him happy one bit. Alfred shouts that he is Alfred, 6 years old, and that he will now perform a trick for them all to see. He explains he will enter this box he constructed with his earth magic and try to escape the box without breaking it within 10 seconds. Alfred tells the crowd to start the 10-second countdown once he enters the box, and the crowd expresses doubt that he can really do that. The crowd enthusiastically counts down. Alfred declares that this is how a true magician does magic and tells them to allow him to blow their expectations away. With a powerful force, the box collapses. The crowd is astonished, shouting, "W!" and asking where he went. Alfred shouts, "He," from behind the crowd, shocking them. The crowd is amazed, clapping and shouting that he just appeared out of nowhere. Alfred explains that while they were busy counting down, he teleported himself to the kitchen and then used his earth magic to collapse the box and walk in through the door. The crowd cheers and bows, calling it an astonishing display and asking him to do it again. Alfred, having earned the title, the Miraculous Escape King Alfred, refuses, explaining that a magician never reveals his secret so easily, and the trick will not have the same impact if he reveals the secret. Syria-san is impressed and gives Alfred some fruit water on the house as thanks for the spectacle. Alfred thanks Syria for the drink, and politely refuses to reveal his secrets to Melner and the cheerful man. Melner uses ice magic to cool Alfred's fruit water, noting that Alfred even possesses the ability to use ice magic, which he finds quite astounding, just like the royal capital's Ice Princess. The cover page asks if the curtains have been lifted surrounding Melner and Yelena's true identities. Melner is amazed, noting that Alfred-sama possesses the ability to use ice magic, which is quite astounding, just like the royal capital's Ice Princess. Alfred looks surprised by the mention of Ice Princess. The chapter title, Angel Smile, is shown with an image of a majestic female figure, presumably the Ice Princess. Melner clarifies that the person called the Ice Princess is actually the kingdom of Mistfield's third princess, noting that that's what she's publicly called anyways. Melner explains that's why they in the lower classes have no choice but to call her by such a glorified nickname. Alfred asks what the people in the higher classes call her. Melner reveals that they call her the Ice Doll. Alfred asks why they call her that, and Yelena comments that calling her a doll is a bit much to be honest. Yelena explains that the third princess of Mistfield, Layla-sama, has had a disability in her legs from birth, and since the nation's own princess is unable to walk, the disappointed people around her have been acting quite unkindly to her. However, since Layla-sama is able to use ice magic, everyone's attitude started to change and they began welcoming her with warm, open arms. Yelena notes that Layla-sama began to lose trust in the people around her, even in her family, because of their blatant behavior, concluding that a human being's true nature can be quite deplorable to behold. Alfred feels bad for her for having to go through something like that. Alfred suddenly interrupts Yelena, asking if this royal family talk is the gossip that's famous in the commoner circle, and asks if the details aren't a bit too detailed for mere gossip. Yelena smiles and reveals, "I'm not a commoner," causing Alfred to gasp, "H?" Melner chimes in, saying, "Me neither," further shocking Alfred. Alfred shouts in disbelief that they aren't commoners, asking, "H?" Yelena tells Alfred there's no need to act so cordially since it's true, and asks why they decided to venture out to visit a remote village like this. Melner, revealing that he is a count and Yelena is a viscount, says they're close friends of Nord's. Melner explains that the truth is they came all the way out here to check up on this village's state of affairs. Alfred realizes that these nobles are the Count and Viscount Nord mentioned who would be coming as noble guests. Melner and Yelena then ask Alfred if he is Nord's son, saying they already heard from the villagers about the intriguing art he performed earlier, the teleportation escape trick. Melner laughs, saying he liked the more silly, idiotic side of him more, while Yelena compliments Alfred's upbringing, saying he has proper manners as expected from Nord and Elena's son. Yelena says it's time we headed off. Alfred, trying to stop them, asks where they are both going, and Melner replies, "To your mansion, of course," explaining that his wife should have arrived there by now, and it would be unbecoming of him to make her wait. Alfred is shocked to realize that this guy is a married man. The exterior of the slow-let mansion is shown. A carriage adorned with a coat of arms is seen pulling up. Yelena explains that the traditional coat of arms, an eagle coat of arms, has been handed down to his family after his grandfather was granted a peerage. Melner points out the bigger carriage, asking if it must belong to Count Melner, and Alfred says he sees and that the coat of arms with blades looks pretty cool. Melner humbly states that neither his coat of arms nor Yelena's can compare to the slow-let family's, since theirs is a dragon insignia after all. Alfred is suddenly struck by the realization that their carriage has a huge dragon coat of arms. Alfred laments that Nord gets embarrassed from his Dragonslayer nickname, but they can't really hide that fact if they have a dragon for their coat of arms, thinking who wouldn't get embarrassed over a Chunibu name like that. Melner laughs hard at the Dragonslayer nickname, and Alfred notes that Melner is laughing pretty hard at his old man's nickname. Alfred looks pained, saying that sounds quite pitiful, and that if he had a nickname like that, he'd probably writhe in agony every time people call him by it. Melner bursts into laughter, telling Yelena and Alfred to stop that because he's gonna bust a gut laughing so hard. Elena, dressed in her proper attire, appears, asking with a cold, intense glare, "Who's a dragon slayer now?" Melner and Yelena instantly fall silent. The two nobles approach Elena and bow. Melner and Yelena formally introduce themselves, bowing, with Melner stating he is Darius Melner, Count, and Yelena is Eustelle Yelena, Viscount, and they express their gratitude for inviting them here on this wonderful day. Alfred thinks to himself that these guys are nobles after all, overflowing with an aura of nobility even though they are currently wearing villagers' clothing, and he notes the speed at which they can cope with any situation. Alfred introduces himself, welcoming them in and allowing the second son of the slow-let family the honor to welcome them in from the bottom of his heart. Melner and Yelena thank Alfred for the compliment, noting that the second son is a polite one, but Nord interrupts, telling Alfred to wait right there. Nord explains that even with such a splendid performance, Alfred is not off the hook that easily because Nord has to have a leisurely talk with the Count and Viscount over there. Nord tells Alfred that they'll save this for afterwards and to meet him in the garden later and be sure to bring his wooden sword. Alfred throws his hands up in despair. There's a knock at the door, and Nord, having recovered from his embarrassment, opens it. Nord calls out to Eustelle. Yelena. Yelena's wife, Linaria, enters, and Yelena greets her, saying he wanted to see her. Melner observes Yelena's wife, noting that she is petite and little, thinking it's hard to say she's anything but a little girl. Alfred, watching the interaction, is disgusted, thinking where the heck did that man who was overflowing with diligence and knowledge go and that they're acting all lovey-dovey. Alfred mentally renames Yelena, thinking, Viscount Yelena? More like Viscount Laliner, concluding, there's no mistaking it, that this guy's a lolicon. Yelena coughs and reminds Linaria that she still has yet to make her salutations, and she apologizes. Linaria formally introduces herself as Viscount Yelena's wife, telling Alfred Sama and Count Melner that it is her pleasure to make their acquaintance. Melner tells Linaria that she is just as cute as the rumors say she is, and Alfred notes that the man is flustered and Linaria's ears are turning red too. Alfred formally introduces himself as the slow-let family's second son, welcoming her to their humble abode. Linaria smiles brightly, thanking Alfred very much for his hospitality and complimenting his smile, and says she hopes they can get along. Linaria compliments Bartolo-kun's cooking as utter perfection. Linaria asks Alfred if he has had the spaghetti down at the village diner yet, saying that Melner-sama has taken quite a liking to it. Alfred, politely excusing himself, says he guesses he'll head back to his room. Linaria immediately follows him, shouting, "Why are you following me, Linaria?" as she tells him he can just call her Linaria because Mrs. sounds too grand for her tastes. Alfred, flustered, asks why she is following behind him, and she replies that it's because she wants to talk to him. Linaria looks at Alfred with large, sparkling eyes, asking, "Is that okay?" Alfred is wary, seeing the way she looks like she's looking forward to it. Linaria is fidgeting, tapping her foot as she follows Alfred down the hallway. Alfred asks her what is it, and if there is something the matter. Linaria apologizes, saying it was just her imagination and she could have sworn she felt some sort of presence near her head. Alfred sighs, noting that because of Reincarnation, he has been getting extremely sensitive to the presences around him. He realizes that since there's only him and Linaria-san here, the feeling has to lie with Linaria-san, exclaiming, "There it is again." Alfred tries to avoid the feeling by changing his walking rhythm. He keeps walking, noting the presence is far away now. Alfred is finally relieved to be at his door, thinking, "Finally we're at my room," but notes that this is becoming a pain in the butt. Linaria gently pats Alfred's head. Alfred is startled by the pat on the head, saying, "Don't know." Linaria is apologetic, asking if he did not like it. Alfred is flustered, admitting that it just bewildered him when she suddenly patted his head out of the blue, but says that it's not that he didn't like it, while Linaria smiles, saying he's a smart one to know a difficult word like bewilder, and calls him a good boy. Linaria confesses that Alcuin is just so cute, and that before she knew it, she really wanted to ruffle his hair, leading Alfred to realize that's why he felt something trying to reach for his head. Alfred, understanding the feeling, asks Linaria if she is fond of children, and she confirms she is, explaining that she's the youngest in a family with only girls, so she has always wanted a little brother. Alfred sympathizes, recalling that in his past life in Japan, he had $3 older sisters, and as the youngest born into the family he ended up being their plaything. Alfred sighs, realizing his situation hasn't changed even in the present day, wishing he had a younger brother he could use as a shield against his older sisters. Linaria, excited, asks Alfred if she can become his little sister. Alfred is completely shocked, wondering what she just asked him. Linaria asks Alfred if it's all right with him and if he would like to become her child. Alfred looks stunned by the question, asking, "Linaria's child?" The chapter title, Pure, is displayed. Alfred questions Linaria's logic, thinking that the leap from merely wanting a little brother to asking someone to become her child is quite the leap, and suggests it would be better if she and Viscount Yelena had children of their own. Linaria blushes and says having kids with Estelle is too embarrassing. Linaria, shivering, says the corridor is getting a bit cold, and Alfred says, "Anyways, let's go into my room." Alfred asks Linaria to pardon his ignorance but notes he doesn't see a fireplace anywhere in the room, and says he's going to turn up the heat a bit. Linaria is amazed, shouting that it's so warm, and compliments Alfred's skill with fire magic, saying it's remarkable. Linaria mentions she can only use a bit of wind magic, asking if there's a trick to using it, and Alfred suggests she try using it whenever she sees a good opportunity. Linaria gives Alfred some examples of when to use her magic, like trying to knock down a small twig that's dangling from a tree or trying to replace the air that is circulating in her room. Linaria then wonders if she should try to incorporate using magic into every little part of her life for good practice. Linaria asks Alfred if he has perhaps not started practicing intermediate-level magic yet, specifically mentioning offense magic similar to Wind Slash, and Alfred realizes that's what she means. Alfred explains that offensive magic is pretty dangerous, and since he doesn't set foot outside the village much, he hasn't really had the opportunity to use it, adding that even just simple everyday magic can be used as offensive magic if you apply it correctly. Linaria smiles, saying Alfred's perspective is pretty interesting. Alfred looks pleased, musing that if the people of this world were a little more open-minded and started incorporating magic into their everyday lives, their lifestyles would be bound to flourish. Alfred realizes that in his case, magic is mainly useful so he can properly defend himself. Linaria notices the Reversi board, asking if it is that game that has made its way even to the royal capital. Alfred confirms that it has. Alfred looks annoyed as he thinks about Triela, the guy who was entrusted with the selling rights, saying he is steadily selling out all of the stock, which is good, but for some reason, this is making him a bit angry. Linaria mentions that her father is Duke Lauvladi and he was able to obtain one when there was a huge craze over it, and she was overjoyed when he asked her if she wanted to play with him. Alfred is shocked, shouting, "Duke?" realizing Duke is a rank almost at the top of the social ladder. Alfred explains that for those not of the royal family, the rank of Duke is acquired only if one is able to achieve incredible feats, and so it is the pinnacle of nobility. Linaria is surprised Alfred did not know that, and Alfred blames his father for not informing him. Eleonora suddenly bursts in, asking Alfred if he really knocked, and questions why he always enters the room without a response. Alfred tries to argue that even if she did knock, it's still rude to just enter someone's room before you get a response, asking how Mrs. Linaria, who was also in the room, didn't realize either. Eleonora ignores Alfred's logic and scolds him, telling him to stay silent. Alfred, remembering that she is a duke's daughter, cautiously asks Linaria if she is perhaps affiliated with the royal family in any way, and Linaria quickly denies any ties. Alfred is greatly relieved, thinking that saying something rude to someone with ties to the royal family would be the end for a country bumpkin noble like him, a baron as shown in the peerage pyramid. Eleanor asks Linaria how she became Viscount Yelina's wife, saying she would like to know as well, which flusters Linaria. Linaria coyly explains that it was love at first sight, to say the least. Eleanor asks since when she met Viscount Yelina, and Linaria, blushing, says love gossip is popular no matter what world one may be in. Linaria admits it was 7 years ago, causing Alfred to shout, "See criminal." Alfred is even more shocked when a smiling Yelina says, "No way, that he was a criminal." Eleonora, ignoring the insult, apologizes for her rudeness and asks Linaria how old she is currently, as Alfred mentally calculates the age difference from 7 years ago. Linaria happily reveals she has just turned 16 this year, causing Alfred to stare in shock at her youthful appearance. Alfred quickly calculates that her love story started when she was only 9 years old, concluding that to fall in love at first sight at the age of 9 is a bit. Linaria explains that at first, her father did not approve, but after many years of trying to have him reconsider, she was able to receive his blessings. She smiles, saying she was finally able to enter into a mutual love relationship with her beloved Yelina. Eleonora, deeply moved by the story, notes that it took 7 long years. Alfred is impressed by Linaria's pure devotion, giving her his respect from the bottom of his heart, noting there is not even a hint of selfishness. Eleonora is ecstatic, calling it a love story between lovers of different status that is straight out of a fairy tale. Alfred, seeing Eleonora's emotional reaction, tells her that since she is lacking in the girl power department, it's impossible for something like that to happen to her. A graphic is shown illustrating various women, Sarah, Carla-san, Mom, Linaria-san, and Emma-san, explaining that girl power is the power to stand out by using their individual good points and demonstrate their very existence. Alfred argues that what he thinks girl power means is the power used to pamper guys and that Eleonora's fantasy power is completely different. Eleonora asks Alfred what he means by girl power, thinking he probably means arm or fighting strength. Eleonora, suddenly angry, says that a voice in her head told her to hit him, so she hit him, demanding to know why he hit her. Linaria, oblivious to the situation, coos that the two of them sure get along really well. Yelina enters and tells Linaria that it's almost time for them to head back. Linaria pushes Yelina toward the door, telling him, "Out you." Yelina chuckles that siblings sure are wonderful. Going back to sleep is shown. The exterior of the mansion is visible. Alfred is snuggled in his futon, stirring slightly. He mentally laments the irresistible power of the futon in the wintertime, feeling so cold and sleepy. He grabs onto his futon, declaring that he can never win against the magical power that a futon possesses, and vows that he's never letting it go. Alfred sighs happily in a perfectly comfortable sleeping position, floating merrily in midair, concluding, this is happiness. His comfort is interrupted when he realizes he has to pee, and notes that if he were to get out, the freezing midwinter air will be able to attack the warm space in the futon. Alfred dramatizes his dilemma, wondering if he should abandon this comfortable spot for relief, or endure this urge and defend this comfortable spot until his last breath. He concludes that he can't take it and wants to use the bathroom. Alfred mentally apologizes to his futon for breaking the love vows he exchanged earlier. He resolves that even though there's a danger of staying wide awake, what has to be done, and that he must press forward in the face of the vile thing called the morning sun. The path to the bathroom looks arduous since he has only just opened his eyes, but he must press forward. He momentarily considers bringing his foot back under the covers so his beloved futon and he will be able to warm each other's body and soul. The urge is starting to swell up, but he decides he has his pride that he has to protect. He surrenders, whispering, "I'm sorry," to the futon. Alfred finally springs out of bed, shouting, "Teleport," to lock up the heat in the futon, immediately shivering and complaining, "See cold." He successfully teleports to the bathroom. He sighs in relief, thinking, now my pride can stay intact. Alfred looks content. He is suddenly startled. He ducks back under the covers as a chirping sound is heard. Alfred is confused, realizing it was all just a dream that felt so real, but he wonders if it shouldn't be that cold since today's the second day of the harvest festival. He is relieved that the bed is not wet and his pride is still intact. A knocking is heard on the door, and someone asks, Al, are you awake? As Alfred snuggles back down, thinking it's time to really go back to sleep. Silvio comes in and announces, No, he's sleeping, even though Alfred still hasn't said anything yet. Alfred shouts at Silvio to go away and that he doesn't want to hear any of it, but Silvio insists he's only saying it's just him and he. Alfred notes that it's pretty rare to have Silvio Nissan come straight to his room and begs him not to bother him while he's trying to go back to sleep. Eleonora comes in and calls out to El. Eleonora tells a defeated Alfred that she knows he's awake because he was just conversing with Silvio and he made his decision a bit too fast. Alfred, resigned, realizes he didn't remember to lock the door and there's no use lamenting over that now. Eleonora smiles sweetly and pulls back the covers, telling him to wake up, though. She gently touches his face, thinking that with a cherubic sleeping face like this, no matter where you look, it's just your cute little brother sleeping. Alfred immediately shouts that it hurts. Eleonora asks if he thought a phony sleeping face like that would fool her, while Alfred shouts for her to forgive him. Alfred, still aching, asks Eleonora to separate her hand from his skull, insisting there's no need for him to get up so early because today's just the second day of the harvest festival. Eleonora warns Alfred that if he keeps talking like that, he'll be walking on thin ice one of these days, and notes that Count Melner and Viscount Yelena are also planning to take it easy. Alfred complains that he wonders what's more of a crime, walking on thin ice or that thin line she calls a chest. Eleonora laughs and says her woman's intuition told her it was okay to hit him, and Alfred asks if she means that stupid oracle voice that's in her head. Eleonora tells Alfred that there's still morning practice, and his father just decided right now that they'll have some sword training with Count Melner and Roomba. Alfred is shocked that Roomba and the Count personally requested him for training, thinking he would be nothing but a nuisance, and curses Roomba for coming back so suddenly. Eleonora gently pats Alfred's head, saying she can't use Silvio Nissan as her shield. Alfred agrees that if it's Silvio, he'll just break if you do, because Nissan's defense sucks anyways. Eleonora, smiling with a dark aura, tells him to hop on over if he understands, and Alfred resigns himself to going since it's the Count that called for him. Alfred goes with Eleonora, asking if she hoped she didn't leave something like a handprint on his forehead. Later, Eleonora finds Silvio sitting by the wall and asks him what he is doing, reminding him it's time for practice. Silvio smiles and agrees to do his best, telling Alfred he better prepare himself. Eleonora gently tells Alfred that before heading to morning practice, he better go and eat some breakfast because if he doesn't properly eat, he won't be able to practice at full strength. Alfred's mother, Elena, greets him, saying, "Good morning, OHAL," and comments that in order to live a fun, slow life, it's important to keep his body healthy and fit. Elena smiles, commenting on how lively Alfred and the children were today, as Alfred asks what that was just now. Alfred asks his mother if there's something wrong with his head, specifically if it deformed into a gourd. Elena laughs and denies it, saying his head hasn't deformed, but Alfred points out that she just laughed. The maid, Sarah, arrives with his breakfast, and Alfred notes that Sarah-san's follow-up is right on time with Mom's, thinking she's such a reliable maid, unlike Mina. Alfred points out that Sarah just laughed, but Sarah quickly denies it, saying, "It is my pleasure," while Elena says Sarah just sneezed, not laughed. Elena then explains that Sarah is a lady after all who tries to pay attention to her sneezing. Alfred attempts to trick his mother into revealing her lie by complimenting Sarah's supposed short and cute sneeze. Alfred eats his breakfast, thinking that if he can't get anything out of Mom, then he'll just ask Sarah directly. He eats, trying to uplift his mood by enjoying the delicious food. Alfred suddenly looks up and asks, "When did she?" "Not there." He enjoys the delicious vegetables, feeling the fresh and vibrant vegetables penetrating every corner of his body. Mina enters, carrying a large vase, and says, Elena, laughing at the sight of Alfred. Mina points at Alfred's head, shouting, "On your forehead." "What is that?" Elena scolds Mina for her lack of self-control, but is also holding her laugh. Mina laughs, saying she couldn't help herself from laughing the moment she saw it because there's a handprint right on his forehead, which Elena confirms is definitely Eleonora's handprint. Alfred immediately rushes to the mirror. He stares at his reflection in horror at the obvious handprint on his forehead. He curses, "That damn demon king," and notes the absurd grip strength she must have. He mentally scolds his mother and the maids for laughing instead of honestly telling him about it. Alfred smiles darkly, vowing to utilize his morning training well and return the favor. He finishes his breakfast quickly, preparing for revenge against the Demon King. The Demon Lord, the hero, and the Lost Shield is introduced. Alfred is eating his breakfast with big, aggressive bites. The maids and his mother apologize for laughing at him earlier. Alfred tells them he's not mad but has something much more important that he needs to take care of, as his mother sighs with a subtle slump. Alfred quickly excuses himself after thanking them for the meal, as the maids encourage him to do his best at his morning practice. He rushes off, thinking he's still not mad, but curses the persistent handprint that's almost gone now. Eleonora greets Alfred at the training grounds, saying he's late and sure took his time eating breakfast. Alfred, referring to her as the Demon Lord, asks her to cut down her sorry attitude, having lost his nerve due to her intense glare. Eleonora smiles sweetly and gives a full bow, offering her sincerest apologies for being late. Alfred thinks that if he was completely disciplined he wouldn't even have the willpower to resist her right now, and he asks if he's her trained pet now. He immediately affirms to himself that he still has his sanity intact. Eleonora tells Alfred to stop saying weird things this early in the morning and tells him to come on, he needs to warm up too. He shouts, "Yes, understood." Alfred runs with his siblings, lagging behind and gasping for air. He is greeted by Roomba and Count Melner, who note he's finally here and late. Alfred greets them and asks if they're doing fine, trying to hide his exertion. Alfred immediately refuses Melner's challenge to a match, thinking that if Melner were to swing a wooden sword with that huge lug of a body of his, he would literally send Alfred flying with just one hit, especially since he seems like the type that's not good at holding back. Melner then challenges Silvio to a match, who Alfred notes is definitely in the Battle Maniac faction like Dad. Melner sighs, conceding the match to a little later because Alfred's insistence that Melner has a kid confirms that Melner probably knows how to hold back. The match is interrupted when Roomba challenges Melner, demanding to know if Melner broke his wooden sword earlier, claiming Melner is one to talk about not holding back since he cracked his wooden sword. Melner claims the sword was already damaged from the get-go, and that Roomba's swing just surprised him a bit. Eleonora shouts for them to break it up, telling Alfred he thinks he'll get off with a sorry excuse like that. Eleonora shouts at the boys to stop dawdling around and continue doing their warm-up exercises, angrily rejecting Alfred's request to cancel that match. Silvio and Eleonora begin their practice swings enthusiastically. Alfred observes Silvio, noting that today, rather than just serious, he's acting sharper than usual in his practice. Alfred realizes that Silvio Nisan too has the same resolve as he does, and Eleonora Nisan is the foe that they both have to defeat. He is encouraged, thinking that if he is together with Nisan and his fiery spirit, they'll even have a chance at winning against Eleonora. Alfred shouts to the Demon King to just wait and see because the two guys before her have changed from what she once knew. Alfred happily tells Silvio, "Let's both do our best, Nisan," while Silvio glares at Alfred's insult of his sucky defenses. Nord calls for everyone to gather up. Nord confirms that they're all finished with their warm-up exercises, and that it's time to get on with some matches. Nord explains that they're going to have their matches round-robin style to gauge both fighters' strength, and Alfred sighs, noting that this is a good way to confirm if Alfred can even stand up against Count Melner in the first place. Alfred is shocked when Silvio claims it's necessary to gather up allies when fighting the Demon King, thinking that even a hero usually has a sage or a cleric in their party. Eleonora smiles and agrees, giving Silvio a friendly punch on the arm. Alfred notices that Silvio also has an evil smile on his face. The match pairings are posted, showing Silvio versus Al, and Alfred cries out that they shouldn't say that out loud. The crowd starts arguing about who is stronger, noting that Alfred is more adept in magic compared to swordplay. Roomba and Melner debate Alfred's magic ability, listing off his feats like launching a huge icicle and creating a confinement for himself. Melner asks Roomba if he wasn't at the Reversi tournament yesterday, and Roomba admits he had to, something else, while Alfred notices the two nobles sure are hitting it off despite today being their first time meeting. Nord shouts, "Begin!" Alfred and Silvio clash swords, and Alfred looks shocked. Alfred notes that the demeanor behind Silvio's attacks feel different compared to the usual. He quickly notes that his swordsmanship should only be several paces behind Silvio's. Alfred parries Silvio's aggressive attack, commenting that he's pretty aggressive today. Alfred narrowly avoids a strike, wondering what Silvio is giving him that frustrated look for. Silvio shouts, "Oh, peace," as he barely regains his stance after Alfred forces him back. Alfred boasts that he has reached transcendence when it comes to evading and parrying blows, noting that it's all thanks to practicing against that dumb raging inferno of a sister all the time. Melner questions why they are fighting like that, and Roomba, having realized the truth, says, "I think I got it." Roomba smiles and says, It's nothing. Alfred glances over, curious what they are talking about. Silvio shouts at Alfred to not take his eyes off of him. Silvio lands a stomp on the ground and swings his sword, causing Alfred to barely block it. Alfred is caught off guard by the strength of the attack, thinking Silvio has him now. Alfred blocks a powerful strike, thinking that was close. He realizes that Silvio's first strike was just a way to lure him in and he fell for it hook, line and sinker. Silvio launches another aggressive attack. Alfred gasps, thinking this is tougher than it is usually. However, Alfred notices that Silvio and Ison seems to be more exhausted than he is. Silvio calls an end to the match, shouting, "All right, that's enough." Silvio explains that the match was just a way to ascertain Alfred's true strength, and that's why it doesn't matter if he scored a hit or otherwise, though Alfred notes they still haven't landed a single blow yet. Alfred collapses, grateful that it's over, noting he was at his limit, but promises next time he'll be sure to land a hit on Silvio. Alfred sighs that Silvio was incredibly aggressive today, and Eleonora says that Silvio has that side to him, too, because he is the oldest after all. Silvio reveals his motivation to not lose to his little brother. Alfred sighs, realizing that just like with Shogi, Silvio will surpass him in the blink of an eye. Eleonora tells Alfred that Silvio is a hardworking person, so there's a good chance that may actually happen, so Alfred has to keep at it too. Silvio sternly reminds Alfred that he's prohibiting the use of magic during the matches, causing Alfred to gasp in shock, asking if he's serious. Alfred reluctantly agrees to the restriction. Nord announces the next match, Eleonora versus Al. Alfred screams in horror. Eleonora tells Alfred that he looks like he's still full of energy, asking, "What about Silvio Ni-san?" Eleonora informs Alfred that he's the only one still here. Eleonora excitedly tells Alfred to have a go, while he looks around frantically for Silvio. Silvio is seen watching them with tears in his eyes. Silvio encourages Alfred to do his best. Alfred realizes that Silvio set him up. Eleonora laughs menacingly, asking if Alfred is ready yet, and he realizes that her expression doesn't match up with the gentle voice she's emitting. Alfred, terrified, begs her to be gentle. The hero Alfred is challenging the Demon King solo. Roomba and Melner watch from the sidelines, and Melner notes that he doubts Alfred has a chance of winning, even if he specialized in a sword style meant to outlast the opponent, because he probably wouldn't stand a chance even if he was a zombie. The last day of the Harvest Festival. The narration declares the hero Alfred faces off against the Demon King in solo combat. Eleonora smiles sweetly and yells, "Begin!" The match is instantly over, witnessed by Melner, Roomba, and Silvio, who look shocked. The narrator announces an Inaka and that the match is over. Alfred collapses, tearfully thinking, "How cruel," and complaining that Dad even said that it wasn't necessary to land a hit. Melner, looking confused, asks Alfred if he could have pulled out a victory against him if he didn't use up all of his stamina fighting the first match, but Alfred resigns himself, thinking Eleonora is right that he's too weak and has got to train more. Alfred is exhausted, and Nord calls out to him, asking if he got a moment. Nord smiles and gently touches Alfred's shoulder. Eleonora and Silvio are seen sitting down, and Eleonora laughs, saying Alfred didn't work up any sweat whatsoever, noting that she doesn't mince words, and Silvio agrees that that should go without saying. Eleonora is surprised by a change in the field, asking, "OH? What are they doing?" Eleonora asks Silvio if he will help both of them practice too after those two, Nord and Roomba, are finished, complaining that Count Melner is helping El practice and it's no fair. Melner asks Alfred if he was able to figure out his shortcomings during practice, which Alfred confirms, feeling like he can fix them now. Melner then tells Alfred to call for Roomba so they can put what Alfred just learned into practice, noting that Melner has experience teaching his own kid too, which is just what one would expect from a battle maniac count. Roomba is ecstatic, shouting that his time has finally arrived, and asks Alfred to be the kid's opponent. Roomba aggressively approaches Alfred, who shouts, "Wait." The match begins with a clang, and Alfred's stance immediately broke, which Roomba noticed, saying Alfred needs to stop shaking. Roomba's fierce and relentless attacks force Alfred onto the defensive, making him fear Roomba is gonna kill him. Roomba notes Alfred's unyielding will to survive as evidence that he has talent in becoming an adventurer, but Silvio points out that Alfred once told him that he will never become an adventurer because it is too dangerous. The narrator notes that Roomba and Silvio's conversation is scary, and that Alfred's talent means little since he doesn't want to be a knight in the first place. The scene shifts to the last day of the Harvest Festival, with Alfred talking to Bartolo, looking pretty beat up from the training. Bartolo comments that the guests are starting to leave and it's going to feel a little lonely around here, as Alfred sadly looks out the window, noting that he ended up spending the entire day in his room even though it's the Harvest Festival. Nord and Yelena invite Alfred to definitely come and visit Yelena's territory next time and promise they'll welcome him when they head to the capital. Nord turns and pats Alfred's head, saying Alfred will be accompanying him as well, noting that Alfred is almost at that age when he's going to have to debut at nobles' parties anyway. Alfred looks pleased, thinking Lunaria-san looks so happy at the thought of Alfred visiting, but questions if they aren't serious and are just saying it out of social formality. The carriage leaves the manor through the gate. Alfred looks at the leaving carriages, excited about the thought of a nobles' party, thinking it sounds like fun if there are going to be a lot of friendly people attending. Alfred, however, quickly changes his focus. He runs toward the festive streets, shouting that it's time to enjoy the last day of the Harvest Festival. Silvio reminds Alfred that he was going to spend the whole day reading books in his room, but Alfred says he's glad they came and notes how lively it is today. Silvio explains that with books, he is able to venture into all kinds of different worlds, and understand the values and ideals of different people, which he feels will flourish his own way of thinking and point of view. Alfred, acknowledging that real-life experience is important too, points out that Silvio was going to lock himself in his room and stick his nose in a book, and admits that even stories have their good points too. Alfred is shocked when Silvio names a book, Princess Marine and the Three Dragons, asking him to not spoil anything as he is looking forward to reading it after this. Silvio explains that reading heroic tales is a contrast to himself, as unlike the protagonists from these stories, he can't really do dangerous things like they do, and suggests that if they're talking about dangerous situations, they can just leave it to Nei-san or Dad. Alfred notes that there is still a resemblance between Silvio and Dad, but Silvio suggests that it would seem like Dad's blood isn't as pronounced in the two of them compared to Nei-san. Silvio, feeling glum, agrees with Alfred, saying he doesn't think he looks as good as Mom does. Silvio smiles brightly, suggesting Alfred's features make him look more like Mom, but Alfred denies that he's as wicked as his sister. The pair are now surrounded by the market festivities. Silvio notes there sure are a lot of people out, and Alfred explains that the first day had nowhere near this many people because tonight's the banquet. The market square is shown during the banquet, with people gathering around a bonfire to sing and dance. The crowd is feasting on food that will be prepared and provided by the Slolet family, so it's all free of charge. Alfred comments that since they also have the backing from the Triela Trading Company, his dad said that it's going to be much more extravagant compared to previous years. Alfred sees Triela looking extravagant, realizing the new expensive clothes Triela is wearing must be from the profit he got from selling Reversi, cursing that bastard and asking how much he is earning. Silvio calms Alfred down, reminding him that it's a festival after all, so let's enjoy ourselves, and that he doesn't know what happened between the two of them, but Alfred and Bartolo had to suffer so much anguish because of him, Triela. Alfred snaps back to reality, realizing Silvio is right, and he has to enjoy the Harvest Festival today. Alfred shakes Silvio's hand, thanking him because he was able to calm himself down a little. Silvio points out a cart selling fruit water nearby, suggesting they go check it out because all this excitement is starting to make him thirsty. Alfred is shown smiling with his siblings, chot guys, muscular men, and a mysterious boy, suggesting the Harvest Festival attracts all sorts of visitors. Alfred looks around, muttering, "How oh?" He notes that Silvio Nissen disappeared from the area. Alfred is eating some food and is looking around, wondering, did he get lost? Two women are gossiping about a really cute blonde guy they saw earlier who was holding hands with a shorter guy with brown hair, as Alfred, shocked, realizes they are talking about him and Nissan. Alfred ignores the comments and decides his priority is finding that blonde Shota, Silvio, telling himself, priorities first. Alfred sees the gossiping women from earlier and wonders if they are perhaps friends with those other girls, Emma and Sheila. Alfred's initial plan to look for Silvio is interrupted when the gossiping women tell him to try asking their degenerate Fujoshi network for information, claiming that he'll be able to find Nissan a lot faster that way. Alfred, disgusted, decides he will stay as far away as possible and continue browsing through the food stalls, calling the women heartless. Alfred looks at the different food stalls. Alfred enjoys the food, noting that it was so good, and decides that since Silvio is not over here either, he'll try heading to the eastern side next. The original gossiping women, seeing Alfred leaving, talk about how Nora caught a glimpse of them near the eastern side and wonder just where they go. The women leave the festival area, cheering, "Let's go." Alfred, having successfully avoided the gossips, follows an inner voice that is warning him to head on over to the western side instead. He runs into the village elder, who greets Alfred-sama and asks how this year's harvest festival has been treating him, while Alfred is enjoying the food, noting that it's really lively and fun so far. The village elder explains that an arm wrestling tournament is being carried out in the village plaza as we speak, and Alfred realizes no wonder everyone is so pumped up. The arm wrestling match begins, with the crack of forearms meeting. The crowd shouts in excitement. A shirtless Roland flexes his muscles and is cheered, with a bystander noting that he's just old man Roland, who is jacked. Alfred is shocked to see Roland is up against Wester this round, musing that Wester must be the type of guy that looks slender and lanky when he wears clothes, and that even Roland must have his limits. The women in the crowd cheer for the muscular contestants, wishing they could be held in Roland's muscular embrace, and Alfred thinks that those muscles can send a goblin flying with just one punch. The cheering continues, with another woman noting that not even an orc would stand a chance against those muscles. Wester cracks his knuckles, preparing for the match. Roland flexes his massive arms. The betting is intense, with people wagering a silver coin and bandit coins on Roland and Wester, and Alfred notes that the men in this village sure love their betting. The announcer states that since there aren't many forms of entertainment here in the countryside, it's probably a huge thrill for them. The women cheer enthusiastically for the spectacle, commenting on how exhilarating it is to see the contestants grapple each other, noting that the sweat their muscles exert are mixing together, and Alfred sighs that this is what riles up the degenerate Fujoshi population. Roland's companion notes that the arm wrestling tournament is popular with ladies, but Roland admits his wife never told him the reason why it's so popular amongst the women. The announcer explains that there's an unspoken rule passed down through the generations which forbids the women from speaking out about the reason. The friendly man notes that there are many things in this world that you are better off not knowing. The contestants lock arms, and the cheering reaches a fever pitch, with the announcer concluding that the reason for the unspoken rule is to prevent the men from questioning the women for their reasons. Alfred, in awe, looks up and realizes the contestant's beautiful pure blue hair can only belong to someone, and wonders what he should do now. He spots Emma Wanisama. Alfred rushes to Emma, but she's quickly gone, and he shouts, "Wait for me, Onama." Where did she go? The gossiping women from earlier appear, apologizing but explaining they must save this for later and immediately leave. Alfred, confused, shouts, "Emma Onama?" He looks bewildered at his interaction with the gossiping women. The handsome man from the arm wrestling tournament, Thor, stops Alfred, calling him a jerk. Alfred asks, "Who's this brat?" And Thor retorts that Alfred has some balls, calling someone he just met a brat. Alfred asks if Thor weren't the one who called him a jerk first, and then nervously apologizes for saying that out loud. Emma appears and sternly tells Thor to stop it and that he shouldn't talk to Alfred-sama in that manner, introducing Alfred as the feudal lord's second son. Thor apologizes, but Emma chastises him, saying he needs to stop addressing Alfred in that manner. Thor tries to call out Emma's poor attitude at home, but she quickly interrupts and asks what he was mumbling about. Alfred introduces himself as Alfred, 6 years old, and Thor introduces himself as Emma's little brother, Thor, 8 years old, noting that he also has an older sister and brother. Thor, quickly apologizing for his rudeness, asks Alfred if he can have a moment. Thor pulls Alfred aside, covering his face to speak privately, while asking what is it. Thor tries to speak, repeatedly saying "you" and about that, until Alfred snaps, asking who he thinks he is, his mother. Thor, finally managing to speak, asks Alfred, "Does Eleonora-sama already have a fiancé?" Thor shouts the question, looking desperately at Alfred. Alfred is shocked, realizing Thor is interested if Nei-san has decided on a marriage partner yet. Thor asks Alfred again if he's serious about his question. Alfred looks intently at Eleonora, thinking she is beautiful, noting her dignity and slender, toned body, though her chest leaves much to be desired. Alfred is immediately determined to unveil to him Eleonora-san's true nature to not allow that outer facade of hers to fool Thor. Thor asks Alfred what part about her he likes, wondering why he'd be interested in her when he already has the wonderful Emma Wanisama by his side. Alfred's determination is reinforced when Eleonora is suddenly next to them, smiling sweetly at Thor, who says, "You would have to be a complete moron to not be charmed by that kind, beautiful smile." Thor is oblivious to Eleonora's presence, as he asks Alfred what in his dense brain made him conclude that Eleonora-san is kind. Thor argues that Eleonora is a huge contrast to Emma Wanisama, who is not only beautiful but refined as well, and that Alfred is the real idiot because he has never experienced his sister's wrath. Alfred and Thor argue face to face. Thor concludes that Eleonora Nasan is hot-headed, violent, and barbaric, and that there isn't even a shred of kindness in that body of hers, adding that his own sister is careless, sloppy, and untidy. The boys are interrupted by Emma, who asks what they are two boys talking about and wonders if they would enlighten them. Thor and Alfred look shocked as Emma and Eleonora are revealed to be listening. Eleonora and Emma smile menacingly at the boys. Thor and Alfred are left speechless in terror. Silvio Nisan appears, looking for Thor, saying he has been looking all over for him. Thor, trying to escape, is caught by Silvio using Nord's technique to prevent him from moving. Eleonora laughs, telling Thor to come over here, noting that talking about a girl's chest would result in even stirring up Emma Wanisama's fury. The two sisters and their brothers meet Emma's friends, and Alfred notes that they have some business that they must attend to. The gossiping women from earlier reappear, wishing their own children would learn from their example, saying they are quite charming, which Alfred notes is not what it seems. Alfred looks miserable as he and Thor are carried off by the sisters, concluding that his future is turning bleak and that he is currently being detained. Story so far. An image of the exterior of the mansion is shown, with a wavy line. Alfred is crying out in agony. Eleonora is seen happily tickling a convulsing Alfred, and the text labels the scene as tickle torture, describing it as Eleonora Nasan's reign of affection. Alfred's mother and maid observe the scene, with his mother commenting that the two of you are just as close as ever. Alfred finally escapes, leaning against a wall and groaning, thinking, what a terrible experience that was. He walks to the mansion, wondering if it's almost time for the banquet yet. The scene shows the exterior of the venue, crowded with people. Inside, Alfred sees people gathered around barrels. Alfred enters the festivities, towering over the crowd in his winter coat. He's greeted by a man who calls out, "Hey, you're late." Alfred greets the man, Thor, and asks where Eleonora-sama and Emma Wanisama are, and Thor replies that his sister said she's coming with Sheila Nachan and her friends, and Nisan refused to come out of his room. Alfred realizes that Eleonora should be with them too, concluding it looks like it's just going to be a chat between him and his comrade, Thor. Thor blocks Alfred's view of a group of girls and asks, "What are you ogling?" when Alfred suggests they should drink up and chat it up all night. Alfred, grabbing Thor's arm, shouts that they aren't old enough to drink yet and tells him to stop underage drinking, but wonders if they're even friends after Thor admits they're comrades who have revealed who they like to each other. Alfred realizes he finds the idea of having a comrade not bad at all. Thor explains that he doesn't consider his feelings toward Emma Wanisama love, but rather admiration, and notes that having a friend close to his age isn't bad. Thor leans closer and demands to know Eleonora-sama's preferences. Alfred looks exasperated, thinking he has made quite the troublesome friend. The celebratory bonfires are lit as darkness falls. Alfred and Thor are talking by the fire, and Alfred asks if Eleonora-sama has a fiancé, which Thor admits he did ask him that before. Alfred explains that someone offered Eleonora a marriage proposal some time ago. Alfred explains that Eleonora was at a noble's party about 2 years ago, and a nobleman fell head over heels for her. Alfred reveals that before the nobleman could pull anything, she had already drawn out a sword and turned the tables on him, and since then, she has never been invited to any more parties or had any more talk of marriage proposals. Thor is shocked by the story, saying Eleonora-sama is really strong, concluding that she will not recognize anyone she deems to be weaker than herself. Thor asks Alfred about his other sisters, wondering if a person who can win in a fight with Eleonora Nasan is Sheila-san or Carla-san. Alfred looks over at a group of adults dancing and shouting, finding them a weird and noisy bunch that he should just ignore. Alfred tells Thor he's right, and that the adults live in their own world and we live in ours. Thor, energized by the revelation of Eleonora's strength, vows he has to try harder so he can get stronger than Eleonora Nasan. Alfred declares that he wants to be a man amongst men who can stand with the best. Thor asks if Alfred is aiming to become an adventurer. Alfred looks thoughtfully at the thought of becoming an adventurer. 1 week after the Harvest Festival, the scene shifts back to the mansion. Alfred is indoors, relaxing on a couch with a magical light source, finding it so warm and realizing that it's best to just stay cooped up in his room and read a good book. He sighs, thinking magic sure is amazing, as he sips hot tea in his warm room. Alfred practices his space magic to instantly conjure food when he gets hungry, wishing he could go outside and read while relaxing when it turns to spring. He hopes every day continues to be as laid back as this, deciding he should spend his time as elegantly and noble-like as possible. He is suddenly startled by a loud slam on the door, and someone shouts, "Hey, let's play." Alfred covers his ears, shouting that he doesn't hear anything and that he wants to spend his time leisurely alone at home. "Thor!" yells Alfred's name, shouting, "It's me." Alfred finally opens the door and is greeted by Thor, who is asking if Alfred is listening to him. Thor shouts that he has decided that he wants to become an adventurer. Thor explains that adventurers are people who make their livelihoods from fulfilling requests made by their clients, and that quests like hunting magic beasts or accompanying nobles or merchants on their journeys are just some requests in their line of work. Thor continues listing the tasks of adventurers, such as gathering precious flora or delicious ingredients, and fetching cryptic items and materials. Alfred, musing that every man has at least once dreamed about becoming an adventurer, says that he wants to sightsee around the world too, but since he was able to reincarnate into this world in the most ideal situation, he just wants to leisurely live out and cherish the life he has been given. Thor asks, "How about joining me, Al? Let's both become adventurers." Thor laughs, saying he knew Alfred would refuse. Thor immediately asks if he can come up to Alfred's room, shouting, "Why not?" when Alfred rejects him, saying he wants to spend his time lazing around today. Alfred quickly tells Thor he's on his way and to give him a minute because his sister is also at home today. Alfred dashes off, rushing to prepare. He runs, thinking, preparations complete. "I'm off to see you, Emma." Alfred is interrupted by a series of strange noises, wondering what was that noise. Alfred looks around, wondering, dash. Alfred is shocked to see Eleonora lying on the ground, asking, "What happened?" The hand of a young person lies still on the ground. Alfred looks down in shock. Alfred gasps in surprise. The cover of chapter 32, Emma's house, shows Eleonora lying on the floor, having apparently fallen. Alfred stands over the fallen Eleonora, looking stunned, wondering, "What should I do?" Alfred despairs, realizing the unfortunate truth that really is Eleonora Nasen. Alfred frantically wonders if he should bury her, leave her as she is, or check if she's still alive. He checks her vital signs, confirming her breathing is regular and her pulse is present. Alfred is relieved, thinking what a relief, and concludes that Wanisen wouldn't die because of a door, thinking the door would be damaged first. Alfred notices the door is spotless and undamaged, while Eleonora only has a little red on the forehead. Alfred observes the scene, noting no bloodstains or witnesses around. He considers if he should finish her off while he has the chance. He quickly rejects the idea, thinking that's too inhumane, and wonders if he should just bury her and let her hibernate, immediately realizing that when she wakes up and wants food, the food won't be him. Alfred pictures Eleonora in a bear costume growling in hunger, deciding that burying her is too dangerous. He settles on a new plan, carefully carry Wanisen back to her room and use teleportation magic so everything that happened here will be just a dream and she won't remember anything. Alfred is suddenly interrupted, finding Mina standing on the stairs. Alfred is shocked, shouting, "Mina! Since when was she standing there?" Alfred, realizing that Mina is the maid he has secretly bribed with sweets before, concludes that the heavens are on his side. Alfred quickly shoves a piece of candy at Mina, telling her, "This is for you. You didn't see anything." Alfred is relieved when Mina calmly accepts the bribe, but wonders if it's not enough because he can't read her thoughts at all. Alfred tells Mina that he'll leave shifting Wanisen to her, thinking, what a relief. I've already run out of candy. Alfred hurries off, telling himself to hurry to Emma Wanisama. Mina, holding the candy, gives a menacing smile as she wishes Alfred safe travels. Alfred runs through the streets, meeting Thor, and apologizes for keeping him waiting, asking what took him so long. Alfred and Thor walk through the cheerful countryside toward Emma's house. Alfred excitedly talks about Emma Wanisama's house, wondering if it's big and beautiful, and Thor tells him it's just his house. Alfred looks at Thor with an envious glare, pointing out that his thoughts are leaking out again, but Thor insists Alfred is the envious one because he lives in the same house as Eleonora-sama. Alfred, annoyed, asks Thor if there is something wrong with his brain, pointing out that Thor is the one with issues, and adding that he could say the same thing to Thor about living with Eleonora. They stop in the center of the village. Thor notes that this is his first time coming to this area and observes that there are no shops around here, thinking it's just ordinary houses. Thor points to a nearby house and says, "Over here." Thor points to the house where he lives. Alfred is shocked, asking if Thor is saying this entire place is Emma Wanisama's house, and Thor denies it, pointing to his orange roof. Alfred is skeptical about Thor's distinction but is even more surprised that Thor's house looks different because they repainted it. Thor tells Alfred that Sheila Nachon lives next door, and Alfred says he won't forget it. Thor proudly presents Emma and Sheila, calling them the two beautiful flowers blooming in Koryat village. Thor is shocked to see Emma, asking, "What are you doing?" As Emma smiles and says, "I'm Ho-." Emma explains that she is home because she is bringing a friend over today and vaguely remembers telling him something about that, but Thor points out that Alfred is the one who he thought she meant. Alfred is confused. Emma, dressed in a skirt, is furious, demanding to know why there is a skirt in the kitchen and why Thor is taking off his underwear, pants, here, while Thor argues that he'll bring it back to his room later. Alfred, seeing the other woman dressed in rough clothes, realizes she must be Thor's mother, thinking he thought it was going to be Asmo. Alfred notices that Emma Wanisama is the image of a cute little girl drinking red tea and playing with the birds. Thor emerges, completely out of breath, and tells Alfred that he can come in now, telling Alfred not to ask why he was panting so hard. The interior of Thor's home is simple, with a table and bench. Alfred looks around, muttering, "How strange," because he doesn't see a staircase to the basement. Thor greets Alfred, welcoming him, but Alfred asks who Thor thinks his sister is if the house doesn't have a staircase to the basement. Emma quickly returns, greeting Alfred, noting that his thoughts are leaking out again, and Alfred begs her to calm down, but Thor angrily states that the mere thought of living with Emma makes him so jealous. Alfred tells Thor he is the one with issues and asks if there is something wrong with his brain, as Thor points out the absurdity of Alfred's comment, living with Eleonora. Emma apologizes for only having water, explaining that since both her parents are working, she usually helps out around the house. Thor is trying to talk to Emma, but Alfred keeps shushing him. Emma notices Thor making a strange sound, thinking he seems a little strange, and he admits he has foot cramps. Emma is happy that Alfred and Thor seem to be getting along and tells them to please enjoy themselves, saying she is going to that room as well. Thor, having finished his drink, suddenly shouts, "I will." Thor tells Alfred to think about it himself about what he needs to do to become an adventurer, because he is only asking Alfred because he doesn't know himself. Thor is excited, realizing that Alfred is the Dragon Slayer, and asks if he isn't his father a famous adventurer. Thor is overcome with excitement, exclaiming, "A Dragon Slayer," and asks if they can talk more about the Dragon Slayer at Alfred's house. Alfred looks at Thor, thinking that that makes sense because Thor can hear the details from him directly, but notes that Thor's quick change of plan is a quick change. Thor asks Alfred about the required rank, and Alfred explains that Thor has to be at least 12 to register at the Adventurers Guild, so he has 4 more years to go. Thor, energized by the information, vows that strength is a must and he's using a sword, and Alfred advises him that although he can't know what will happen in the future, trying various things and working hard would be good. Thor realizes that Alfred's father was the one who taught him swordsmanship, and excitedly declares he wants to go as well. Alfred gently tells Thor he shouldn't give up his humanity and that it's too early for him to do that. Thor, undeterred, asks if he can ask Nachon to teach him first, but Alfred thinks that Thor needs to be a little stronger for a newcomer to join so suddenly and that it's too much. Thor asks Alfred if he is able to read letters, explaining that it is totally foreign to him. Alfred looks surprised. Alfred realizes that the literacy rate of this world is low, meaning it's not strange for them to be illiterate. Alfred warns Thor that if he can't read or write, it will be very hard for him to be an adventurer, and asks Thor to listen to him. Alfred explains that an adventurer does not rely solely on fighting ability, and knowledge is a must as well, forcing Thor to handle calculating money and books or documents. Thor, in despair, asks what he should do, but Alfred is shocked, realizing that Nachon doesn't know how to read letters either. Thor, desperately clutching Alfred, begs him to do something about it as Alfred sadly replies, "Is that so?" Thor breaks down, saying he had already decided to become an adventurer and that he doesn't know what to do anymore. Alfred, defeated by Thor's tears, says, "I'll teach you then, sometimes," which makes Thor incredibly happy. Alfred is drained by the situation, thinking, sigh, how tiring. He arrives back at the mansion, noting that the door is wide open. He looks into the room, wondering what happened. Eleonora is standing in the room, smiling, welcoming El back and asking where he went today. Alfred is shocked and scared by the unexpected reunion, whispering, "He tries to cover up his day, mentioning that he went to play at Thor's house. Eleonora, holding her wooden sword, smiles and explains she wanted to find Al for something, so she was swinging her sword in the garden while waiting. Alfred apologizes, but Eleonora suddenly asks him if he knew that she fainted earlier today. Eleonora is now standing right behind a shocked Alfred, asking if he knew that she fainted earlier today. Alfred is desperate, wondering if she heard it from Mina and if she remembered everything. Eleonora leans closer and tells him she already heard everything from Mina, causing Alfred to explode in fury at that evil maid. Let's make hot water, is shown. Eleonora approaches Alfred, smiling widely, and shouts, Ale. Let's make hot water. Alfred looks up at his sister, who is holding a basin of water, saying, I want to wash my face. Alfred sighs, realizing that his assumption was right. He deduces that Naysan's magic attribute is fire, and asks why she is asking him this now. Eleonora smiles knowingly, admitting she already heard everything from Mina from the previous day. Eleonora immediately confronts Alfred, asking him if he wasn't planning to bury her after she fainted and hit her head on the door, an accusation Alfred immediately shouts a frantic denial toward, realizing fighting back was impossible. Alfred frantically retreats as Eleonora pursues him, shouting, "A retreat." Alfred, cornered, yells that the magic at her feet is water magic, but Eleonora shouts at him to hold it right there. Alfred struggles to understand why she is using such a technique now since she can't even use fire magic properly, musing that using body strengthening in such a situation is strange. Eleonora conjures 3 large blocks of ice with her magic. Alfred runs up the mansion stairs, exclaiming, "That's unfair," at the blocks of ice, which Eleonora points at and asks, "What's that?" Eleonora asks why Alfred can't boil water himself since it's basically boiling water, claiming it's too much work. Alfred thinks that since Eleonora can't even boil water by herself, he can do at least that much, noting that her look is pissing him off. Eleonora challenges Alfred to prove it to her by showing he can heat the water, unless he really cannot and has to ask for her help. Eleonora, now serious, hands Alfred the bowl, warning him to stop with that look already. The scene shifts to Alfred standing outside in the snowy environment with the ice blocks. Eleonora is confused about Alfred's method, asking, "Why did you create water here?" But Alfred replies that he can do that much because Naysan couldn't warm up the water herself. Eleonora challenges Alfred to try heating this ball of water to a normal body temperature and asks him what the average body temperature is. Alfred looks at her with a smug, condescending face, thinking, "And that's why you're a muscle brain." Alfred shouts that he's sorry and won't do it again after Eleonora threatens to hit him if he gives her that look again, revealing that human body temperature is slightly lower than the temperature of her bath. Eleonora tells Alfred to just warm it until he feels it's good enough, reminding him that it's not like she's able to warm it to such precision. Alfred confidently declares, "Fine. I shall begin." Eleonora begins a dramatic chant, asking for a tiny fire that burns all that she sees. A huge burst of black flame magic erupts from her hands. Alfred yells that it's not good. Alfred quickly uses his ice magic to contain the erupting fire, thinking at this rate, the boiling water will fall on them. The water ball violently bursts and boils. Eleonora looks relieved, exclaiming, "Phew. That was dangerous." But Alfred is annoyed, thinking he will be scalded. Alfred glares at the dissipating steam, asking Eleonora, "So don't you have something to say?" Eleonora ignores the question and decides, "Let's try something more basic next," admitting she can't admit that she can't boil water. Alfred finds some firewood for her next attempt. Alfred says that lighting up firewood should be the basic of basics, noting that even Roland can light up the firewood 3 times a day. Eleonora, calling Roland a pervert and poor Asen, old man, declares that if that pervert can do it, then so can I. Eleonora looks intently at a letter sealed with a coat of arms. She tells Alfred that she doesn't need the letter, and they can burn it with the rest of the firewood. Alfred asks if the letter came from a nobleman since there seems to be a coat of arms on it. Eleonora, checking the firewood, notes that only a small ember is all that's needed for lighting up the firewood and that she of course knows that. Eleonora performs a much more controlled spell, showing that the flow of magic is more fluent, and Alfred hopes that this time it'll work. Eleonora focuses her magic, aiming for a tiny fire. A massive burst of flame erupts, completely engulfing the small pile of firewood, causing Alfred to shout, "H!" The firewood is instantly reduced to cinders. Eleonora and Alfred stare at the smoking remnants of the firewood. Alfred, frustrated, asks if she meant to light up the firewood as she said, and Eleonora calmly says, "That's right." Alfred gives Eleonora a piece of wood and tells her that this is enough, commenting on how skillful she is. Eleonora asks Alfred why he doesn't chant when using magic, and he replies that he was thinking it's something like using magic in your everyday life. Eleonora then realizes that if Alfred trains to increase his magic power, he also spends more time practicing magic. Alfred looks at the gigantic water ball he conjured and asks, "Like this? Too big." Eleonora tells Alfred to try to reduce the size of the water ball slowly and hold on to it for 1 minute to try controlling his magic. Alfred struggles to maintain the small ball of water for a minute, noting that swinging his sword is much easier, but Eleonora insists that controlling his magic is much easier than sword practice since he just needs to stand there. Eleonora internally wonders how Alfred finds swinging a sword easier than maintaining magic. Alfred explains that magic control depends on one's perception. Eleonora notices that Alfred has lost concentration, asking if he is really good with magic, and Alfred proudly says he knows that. Eleonora tells Alfred to concentrate a little bit longer. Alfred sighs in relief, having finished the exercise, and Eleonora tells him that if he wants to continue training, he should come with her. Alfred's small, controlled bubble of water pops. Eleonora immediately returns to her natural, rough tone, noting that Alfred made a fast recovery. Eleonora, with a look of intense focus, asks for the words to the tiny fire spell again, with Alfred noting that the magic is clearer and different than before. Eleonora tries again, successfully igniting the firewood with a tiny fire. Eleonora is overjoyed and hugs Alfred, shouting, "I did it!" Alfred congratulates her, thinking that this is the first time she managed to do something like this. Alfred smiles, seeing that she seems really happy. Eleonora says that since she is able to create a weak flame, she should be able to heat up the water to the right temperature. Alfred thinks that's great. Silvio is now with Eleonora, and she prepares the water. Silvio Nisen's screams reverberated throughout the mansion as Alfred narrates the outcome. Alfred and Silvio Nisen clenching his hand, symbolizing the emotional theme of the story so far. Alfred is slumped over his desk, lamenting that he is tired because he is involved in the study of Tor. Alfred reminds Thor that being able to read letters and calculate is necessary to be an adventurer. Thor asks Alfred for a break, saying he's thirsty too, but requests fruit juice and demands Alfred don't dilute it with water and don't be extravagant. Alfred is shocked by Thor's comment, remembering that Thor said he loves water the last time he came over, as Thor claims he can produce it with magic, but Alfred tells Thor he doesn't want to drink any of the water he made. Alfred shouts that Thor is still blind to his sister and thought that he was a freak because he liked Eleonora Nisen, arguing that Thor is the weird one for liking his sister who is so lazy and doesn't have the slightest feminine side. Thor refutes this, insisting there is talk about Eleonora-sama's elegance and kindness that the girls in the village do not have, saying she has the strength to by her own will. Alfred insists that Eleonora's elegance and kindness is a lie, and she only has strength in the physical sense. Alfred decides to take a break since they just had a similar conversation the other day. Thor yells at Alfred to shut up, confessing that it is cheap to think that it's a reward to teach him how to write and calculate, insisting that he knows that Alfred loves fruit juice and demanding he don't dilute it even with a single drop of water. Alfred sighs, telling Thor he wishes he would understand the value of it. Thor excitedly tells Alfred that if he can read the adventurer's request and be rarely looked down on by one's clients, adding that if he can calculate, he can reduce troubles related to money such as rewards and expenses, even allowing him to become a businessman if he's not an adventurer. Alfred tells Thor to let's leave it to the adults for now because it is quite difficult for villagers to get an education in this world. Alfred gives a serious stare. Thor is utterly exhausted after a mere 30 minutes of studying, and Alfred asks if he is all right. Alfred notes that 30 minutes after starting the subtraction calculation, Thor started to lose the expression on his face. Alfred muses that for those who have not received and have not been properly educated, even 30 minutes may be too early to study for a long time. Alfred encourages Thor to solve the last problem, and today's study is over. Thor is overjoyed, and the light of life returns to his eyes. Thor quickly solves the last problem. Thor celebrates his accomplishment, shouting, "All right. Done." Alfred reminds Thor that he hasn't checked his answer, but Thor insists he's tired. Alfred reviews the answers, showing that Thor missed quite a few. Thor is shocked, asking, "Well, how much is the correct answer?" Alfred looks pleased at Thor's surprised expression. Thor apologizes repeatedly, saying Alfred's reaction was so funny, and begs him not to joke with him as he asks Alfred to wait a little longer. Thor writes down the number X and correctly answers some of the calculations. Alfred points out that only $1/4 of the answers are correct, shouting "No." Thor is confused, asking what is 1/4? And Alfred realizes that the fraction is too early. Alfred sighs, thinking Thor's illiteracy and innumeracy is possibly his curse, and reminds Thor that if he can't calculate, he'll lose money, explaining that's why he always tells him to practice. Thor celebrates that finally it's over, and Alfred agrees they should stop here for today. Thor immediately decides that they should go out and play, even though Alfred notes that Thor asked him to teach him how to study, telling Thor that he has to keep practicing repeatedly until he gets used to it. Thor picks up a branch to use as a sword. Thor runs up to Alfred and challenges him to a game of swordsmanship, saying he's strong enough because the Lord trained him, telling Alfred to show him his skill. Thor, with shining eyes, says he yearns to be an adventurer, and Alfred, amused, agrees to play, thinking that he will put all the stress he had accumulated while studying out here. Alfred agrees, saying it's just children's play, but tells Thor to be careful not to get hurt. Thor is instantly ready, shouting, "Let's start the game," saying the branches are just the right goods. Thor immediately strikes Alfred with the branch, shouting, "First win," blaming Alfred for not picking up weapons. Alfred finds a branched stick to defend himself. Alfred uses his branched stick to block Thor's attacks, noting that the stick is sly because it will prevent his attacks no matter how much he swings it. Thor demands Alfred change his weapon, shouting that it is Alfred's mistake that he didn't specify what they use. The sound of wood clashing is heard. Thor loses his branched stick and blames Alfred, shouting, "Unfair," and complaining that this is what happens because he chooses a straight branch. Alfred concedes, saying he understands and will also use the branched one next. Thor excitedly tells Alfred to go and find a new one. Thor laughs as a few minutes pass. Thor returns with a 3-branched stick, saying it's like a fork, and asks Alfred what about him. Thor immediately starts running, ready to strike, ignoring Alfred's questions about how he can swing it properly. Thor is shocked as Alfred lands a hit, realizing it hurts. Thor cries out in pain, asking Alfred what the hell he used. Thor is in agonizing pain, shouting that this is the true value of this branch, apologizing and begging Alfred to stop it. Alfred coolly asks if the game is over, and Thor surrenders. Thor, completely defeated, smiles brightly and asks Alfred to please train him because he is really amazing. Alfred thinks that he had a childish day for the first time in a long time and enjoyed studying with friends or playing sword fighting.